It's a Wednesday morning, it's the AM show, it's Benjamin Akapo right here, ready to serve you the best breakfast on morning television. Thank you for joining us. Now, coming up shortly, you know how we do it, the news will be coming your way shortly. And right after that, guess who joins us? Political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He is our guest for the news review. Then up next, sports with Mubarak Haruna. And then in our big stories, number one on the chopping board. It's been one whole year since the government introduced its domestic debt exchange program. Now, this was done to protect the economy and enhance the capacity to serve our public debts effectively, or so it would have appeared. But a year on, the question is, after having been met with so much stiff opposition from Ghanaians, have the lessons been learned? We discuss this today on the AM show with our guests. Then again, it's Wednesday, and you know how we do it midweek. Courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, will be coming your way with AM Business. In today's episode, we focus on the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, which is worried about Ghana's continuous dependency on food imports, arguing this makes the country highly vulnerable to external shocks. But what's the way out of it? Is it the latest ally that over which our parliamentarians have been wrangling? Well, we'll bring you the scoop on that as well, determining where we have to head as a country. At the tail end, we'd love to hear from you, of course. Have your say, right? We'll bring the microphone closer to you. Those pertinent issues that are of concern to you, will give you the opportunity to air them so that we can bring about change. On that note, stay. I'll be serving you the news up next. Welcome aboard the AM News. And our first story, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says recent events in the Sahara region, particularly neighboring Burkina Faso, are beginning to have a negative impact on the region. Speaking at the launch of this year's Kakube Festival, Dr. Bawumia disclosed that government was deeply concerned about the situation and had already taken steps to address them with a $150 million social cohesion project. Rafiq Salam now reports from Nando.
One of the beneficiaries in the 48 districts in Ghana. And we are seeing that under phase one of this project, the Nandam municipality is benefiting from 12 sub-projects with a total contract sum amounting to 3,893,505 Ghana cedis.
Paramount Chief of the Nandam traditional area, now Professor Munyan Delechiri the commended the government for the numerous projects undertaken in the traditional area. He was full of praise to the Interior Minister, Ambrose Derry, for leading the charge to ensuring that the people have the requisite development.
The venerable and indefatigable Ambrose Derry, who has taken the development, human and infrastructure of Nando by the horns, such that even a blind man can see and a deaf can hear of them. Indeed, his influence has been much felt.
Now, Professor Muyendele Chiri the Eighth, however, has some challenges he want the government to fix.
A modern office complex for the traditional council, the deaf sum of Kamba Bridge, the road from Nandom to Koku to Domgai, which is a terrible state and provides shelter for armed robbers. This road constitutes a crucial link between Nandom, Laura, and Jirapa.
Interior Minister Ambrose Derry called on the people to rally behind the government and support Vice President Dr. Alhaji Bawumia, who has now been elected by the MPP as its flag bearer to win the 2024 polls. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Nandom.
Now, authorities of the colleges of education in Ghana are worried about inadequate lecture halls and residential facilities to accommodate students admitted each year. President of the National Conference of Principals of Colleges of Education, Professor Samuel Antintono, says his outfit is dissatisfied with the level of infrastructural development, the provision of logistics, and even staff remuneration at the colleges of education, especially if they are to be considered as centers of excellence for teacher education in the country. Correspondent Albert Sori now reports.
The 2023 National Conference of Principals of Colleges of Education, PRINCOF, was held in Bolgatanga under the theme Repositioning Colleges of Education as Centers of Excellence for Teacher Education in Ghana. The conference brought together principals of the 46 public colleges of education in Ghana and other stakeholders in education to deliberate on issues affecting these colleges and how they can effectively train teachers for the country. Addressing the conference, the president of the National Conference of Principals of Colleges of Education, Professor Samuel Antintono, revealed that there is no adequate infrastructure at any of the 46 public colleges of education nationwide.
Infrastructure deficit in the College of Education is a very worrying situation. If you look at all the 46 member colleges, none of them have the capacity to say they have enough lecture halls or they have residential facilities. In recent times, we have witnessed a number of labor unrest from both teaching and non-teaching staff of the College of Education regarding their condition of service. I want to speed up the processes of implementation to bring finality to the issue. The amount of 10 cedis per student per day as feeding fee is woefully inadequate and must be increased to at least 30 cedis per student per day. The licensure exams introduced as part of teacher professionalism is a very good move as it seeks to position teachers as professionals and make them meet global teacher standards. However, there are other issues which need to be looked at, such as conducting an assessment to find out the issues of mass failures among newly trained teachers, indeed not actually from our colleges, but other participants. It is very worrying that all principals are using 15-year-old Nissan patrol vehicles that were given by the government in 2008 as operational vehicles. Almost all the vehicles are not roadworthy, and the few on the roads are accident-prone. Very sadly, we recently lost one of our colleagues, the principal of EP College of Education, Bimbla, through an accident in July 2023.
He also shared some major achievements of the National Conference of Principals of Colleges of Education.
Under the leadership and guidance of PRINCOF, the College of Education have successfully offered the various programs over the years. They have 2-year teacher certificate B, 2-year post B, certificate A, until recently when we had the diploma program, and now we are running as 2018-2019. We started the 4-year bachelor education program.
Delivering the keynote address, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor Emmanuel Ado Obeng, said repositioning colleges of education as centers of excellence for teacher education requires robust leadership.
Leadership is also another challenge that can affect the repositioning process. The repositioning demands a powerful, goal-oriented leadership. We can passionately lead a team of dedicated individuals and drive them towards success.
Now, enrollment at the Inshiaeso MA Basic School in the Asante Akim North Municipality of the Ashanti region has surged by 330% in only 3 years, making it the most popular school despite previously having some of the lowest retention and enrollment rates. Education officials attribute this to the MTN Ghana Foundation's construction and delivery of a fully equipped 6-unit classroom block and teacher quarters to that rural community. The intervention came after a Joy News Agenda report detailed the poor state of the only basic school in a community which suffered the brunt of nomadic herdsmen and their marauding cattle. Ohiming Tewia went back to that community 3 years after the school was handed over and came through with this report.
A group of students happily practice in marches ahead of an upcoming basic school circuit game. This school until 2020 was a pale shadow of itself as students competed for space with the African fruit bags in only 3 standard classrooms here. Makeshift classrooms constructed out of mud and thatch had developed deep cracks, putting the lives of both students and teachers at risk. These dilapidated facilities also served Peudie, Abotanso, Jerusalem, among other hamlets. Weak and leaking roof means classes were halted anytime the clouds gathered. Students who trekked several kilometers to Ananikrum to access junior high school were sexually abused on their way. It was common to see residents, mostly settler farmers, relocate from the community in high numbers, a situation which depleted the population of local basic schools. But MTN Ghana Foundation intervened to change the situation by building a 6-unit classroom block. The edifice is not only the toast of students, but also attracts students from nearby communities. Christiana Awuni and Asakia Robert, former students of the Winamda MA Primary School, are some of them.
When the rain comes, we will close school and run home because we cannot stay at the classroom and learn. That's why I stopped Winamda and I came home. The school is beautiful.
Head teacher of the Nsheso MA Basic School, Jonah Akapanga, described the transformation as a miracle. According to him, his colleague head teachers are impressing upon him not to admit any more of their students.
MTN Ghana Foundation, it is because of their building this new edifice that is doing that miracles for us. Every other area, the nearby community, the teachers have been complaining that because of our building, it is attracting so many students. They are losing a lot of students from their schools to our school.
The provision of education infrastructure has impacted positively on teaching and learning in the school. Teachers are now accepting postings to the school, which lacked teachers. The school's population of 252 in 2019 has shot up to 826 students in 2023. The school has since 2022 recorded a 100% pass in BECE. This is in fulfillment of UN Sustainable Development Goal 4, which promotes quality education through education financing, increase in number of teachers, infrastructure, among others. Ebenezer Tepe is Education Portfolio Advisor at MTN Ghana Foundation.
The stories we are hearing from Mensah is quite gratifying. General educational outcome has improved tremendously. The academic achievements have been good. Dropout rates have significantly reduced. And then, interestingly, the enrollment has shot up, to very, very significant levels. And it is good that what it means, or what this actually communicates to us at the foundation, is that our intervention has really helped.
Education authorities are happy with the initiative of the MTN Ghana Foundation, which they say has opened a floodlight for other benevolent organizations to support education infrastructure in the area. Mildred Amakwache Ejapong is the Municipal Director of Education for Santiachim North.
The presence of MTN is an eye-opener to the whole world. They have really set the pace. In fact, initially it was difficult for teachers to go there. They were complaining, but after that project, I'm having my peace of mind, and teachers who go there are very happy.
The lives of residents have since improved after the government extended electricity to the community to match MTN Ghana's initiative, while Action Aid also constructed a mechanized borehole for the school. Assemblyman for Ananikrom electoral area, Peter Abaji, has seen it all.
As assemblyman, I've never dreamed of Nshayeso getting to that level. We were not having an accessible road, we were not having a network, and then we were not having teachers. There's a whole lot. But as we speak now, because of the MTN Foundation school they built for us, we are having road, we are having electricity, we are having network, and then the whole electoral area is enjoying.
For the Agogo Traditional Authority, the intervention from the MTN Ghana Foundation and the Multimedia Group will be the most cherished gift for many years to come, as explained by the Adisuyahine, Nana Frimpong Manson Adakabre.
We all witnessed what happened 3 years ago, the Fulani issues. Students have to trek from Nshayeso to Ananikrom to access basic education, and then the trouble that they have to encounter along the ways. And so MTN coming in with that project was a very big relief for us as stakeholders in education.
From Nshayeso Agogo for Joy News, Oime Teria reporting.
Life in a mining community can be very difficult for members who aren't directly employed by the mining operations. However, in the heart of Ghana, some oil palm farmers, with the support of Golden Star Wasa Limited, are sowing the seeds of change. Samuel Kojo Brace of our Agric desk traveled to Atieku to meet the farmers and came through with this report.
Farming is one surest way for poverty alleviation on a continent like Africa. Research indicates that agricultural productivity growth reduces poverty through many channels. In Wasa East, farmers are using oil palm to improve their livelihoods. Today, I'm traveling to meet some of these farmers. I meet Opening SM Kofi, a retired educationist living here in Ateku, a mining community in the Wasa East district of the Western region. He says farmers in the area have been lucky to have been enrolled on a project, the Golden Star Oil Palm Plantation, GSOP.
When we look at the past and now, there has been a huge transformation. These palm plantations have helped many young men and women to build their own homes. Some farmers have been able to send their children to school. The young girl you see here is my grandchild, and I have been able to sponsor her education from the proceeds of the farm. The palm business has been very impactful.
Another farmer, Mary Adomako, lives in Adase, also in the Wasa East district. To her, oil palm has been instrumental at getting her out of the poverty line.
First, now I've been here now.
When we didn't have the oil palm plantations, things were difficult. But since the chiefs gave Golden Star lands to cultivate these farms for us, they have really been helping our children's education. Since my husband died, it is the oil palm farm that has helped me to take care of the children.
By cultivating oil palm trees, these farmers like Auntie Mary are not only contributing to the local economy, but also improving their own living standards.
Things
were really difficult when we didn't have the farm. We didn't have money to buy food and other things we needed. The children and I could only manage to eat just once a day. Things were hard. But now I eat 2 times a day, and the kids eat 3 times a day. If I say things are difficult for us now, I would be telling a lie.
Auntie Mary says some more people now want to give their land out to Golden Star to cultivate for them.
I
was having a chat with someone, and he said if GSOPP will allow it, he will give them his land for them to cultivate for him, because he has a friend who is on the project and knows how much he gets each month.
The oil palm plantation not only offers sustainable employment in these communities, but also a sense of ownership for the community members.
Well, Christmas has come early for over 800 families in the northern region as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has presented food items to them. The celebration was to launch the church's annual Light to the World campaign. The church also cut the sod for the renovation of some projects at the Tamale Children's Home.
The Light the World campaign is an annual event to lifting, loving, and serving others as a way of celebrating Christmas with the less privileged. The 2023 campaign invites people to let their light shine as they love the people around them and follow the example of Jesus Christ. The food distributed included chicken, rice, oil, tinned fish, among other provisions and cereals for these families. Speaking at the event, the General Authority's 7th and First Counselor of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Africa West Area, Elder Alfred Kuyungu, said the focus of the church this year is for people to show love to their neighbors.
This year, our focus is on emphasizing the importance of loving our neighbors. The theme of this year is "Let your light shine." More countries and the communities will be involved on a daily Christmas countdown will be showcased on various media platforms, accompanied by prompt encouraging acts of kindness to illuminate someone's world each day. What set this year apart is our recognition that many have faced challenges, and by participating, both the giver and the receiver will find blessings, a positive influence in our lives.
Deputy Director in charge of Tamale Sub Metro, Elijah Fant, who represented the Mayor of Tamale, Sule Salifu, said the theme is rooted in the teaching of Jesus Christ that people should show love to others.
The theme of this year's edition is rooted in the very essence of Jesus' teachings that touch the hearts, changes lives by feeding the hungry, comforting the lonely, visiting the sick and afflicted, and showing kindness to everyone. Now, Chairman, Jesus Christ, may the blessings of peace and Allah be upon him, says in the book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 9, that blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. For us to enjoy peace and tranquility, harmony, there is the need for us to have brotherly unity.
The area president of the West Africa Area Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Africa West Area, Elder S. Gifford Nelson, urged Ghanaians to support people who are in need around them.
And then here's our theme: let your light so shine before men that they might see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. May we do that, dear brothers and sisters, dear friends. May we look for someone who needs a kind word, an extended hand, an arm around them, maybe a morsel of food for them to eat. May we be that kind of a person where we are sharing God's light to everyone around us. We love you. Merry Christmas as we light the world.
Charity is the way to go. And that's how we cap off the news this morning. But stay with us. Up next, the news review. Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for the news review, and guess who joins me? Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. But before I bring him in, the segment is always brought to you. It comes to you on your phone, your phablet, your tablet, your computer, or maybe even on your television screen, courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They make it possible. And here's what they're offering you for free, gratis. If you're a man, prostate screening. If you're a man and you've hit a max of 40 years, especially if you're African, because, you know, there are some illnesses that some groups are more prone to. Unfortunately, prostate disease is something that those of us of a certain extraction are prone to. You ought to start getting yourself checked. Just go get yourself screened. Know that everything is in order, and then you can consume foods that aid it. It's a little walnut-sized organ in your body, in case you didn't know. If you're a woman, your fertility. Do you know what is happening? There are so many of our women nowadays coming up with all kinds of fertility complications. And maybe at some point, even worse, you may come out with fibroids and all of that. But do you know what is developing in your reproductive system? That is why you should head to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic for free screening, for free, okay? And here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Chronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. Then there's Takra de Anaji Estate, Tema, Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Siamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review. Doc, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Ben.
And let me just let you know, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante is a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. There's been a lot of action, a lot going on. I don't know which of the matters you would reflect on briefly before we get into the papers, but there's also been talk about the sentencing, the term that Aisha Huang has got. And you know about Aisha Huang, who has been, who has dabbled in illegal mining. I beg your pardon, this morning, my voice is a bit caught up in there, maybe on the back of tiredness, some tiredness, but it's normal. And some people have contested the 4.5 years together with some of the other penalties she's been given. Some have said, why use the old laws to sentence her when there are new laws to prosecute her? Act 995 has come into the fray. There's been a lot of talk about the judge in question and why these decisions were made, especially considering the fact that per the new law, she should have been looking at anything between a minimum of 20 years and a maximum of 25 years. She got 4.5 years. But there are also some explanations in respect of not giving a more severe penalty than would have pertained at the time someone committed a crime, per the law. There are so many complications. The AG himself has tried to explain away while trying to get a stiffer penalty for her. But do you feel this is treating people who are destroying our environment, well nigh our very lives, with kid gloves? Or how do you feel about it?
Good morning, Ben, and good morning to our viewers. I think it's a difficult one because this problem of galamsey and the effect on you and I is so dire that we don't want to toy with it. So you can understand the conversation around it. It is normal. But I get more confused when the lawyers are in different positions relative to the issue we are looking at. This morning I heard from your news item that the AG want to appeal the issue, the case, and the rest of them. It brings to sharp focus the issue that it looks as if we are not hard enough on the fight against galamsey. And I'm struggling to understand why the judge used the old law. even though when you listen to the AG, they said that they prosecuted her using the new law. So why that sharp difference? I'll put that one aside for the lawyers to deal with. But I think that as a society, we have failed to let the fight be on. We have our political elite, anytime some big fishes are caught, you see them in a certain manner that do not support the fight against this menace. We saw Aisha 1, the first time that she was caught in this issue, the statement from Mr. Yaosafo Mafu and the rest of them. Are we ready to fight this battle? I don't think so. I don't think so. Because if you look at, and credit to your media house, you've done a lot of work on Galamsey. But it seems it's falling on deaf ears. And I'm talking about the years of government. That government looks on while people destroy our water bodies and the rest of them. I am so surprised. Look at diseases that are coming up, kidney, the rest of them. And research has shown that they point to these menaces that we have. What is the capacity of government in dealing with people who break the law with impunity? Do we have a government or we don't? What is the essence of the social contract that we gave our power to government to govern on our behalf? And because of that, we will obey the state. I don't get it. Is the contract being upheld or government just doing anything? One of the evils that this government has done against the good people of this country is to sit down and allow Galamsey to fester to the levels that we are seeing today. I'm not sure Ghanaians will forgive them with us, because it is not, the effect is not today, tomorrow and the next day. We are seeing it so hard. And my surprise is that we have armed the government with all the resources to fight this. Yet, the government is just paying lip service, as you rightly pointed it out. I am so disappointed. But they should look at us, that these will constitute part of the campaign for 2024. We can assure them. We can assure them, because we cannot sit down and allow our society to be destroyed while we have a government that we have put in place to defend us, protect us. And based on that, we will also contribute our quota to the development of what the government. And is that what we bargained for? I'm not sure that's the case. But we have taken political note. When it comes to campaign, we will not waste time to drum this thing in the ears of everybody so that it will inform their choices that they make. Because look, we don't have any country except Ghana, and we are ready to defend it at all times.
Thank you, Doc, for those initial comments. While we're talking about all of these, just a few days ago we had the Joy News National Dialogue on Poison for Gold, talking about Galamsey and the menace. The Forestry Commission was represented, the Minerals Commission was represented, the EPA, among others. And then you listen to some people and their rhetoric from some end, and you just tell yourself, look, this fight. Because the very people in pole position to do something are the very people cutting the deals. In the meantime, we have over 600 people that we've carted off to Dubai, COP28, talking about the environment, waxing lyrical abroad and doing all the wrong things locally. Yes, I know the people will come and say, oh, but it's not all 600 of them that were supported by government. But who doesn't know what goes on in some of these things? That's something that I'll reserve good time for, likely on Friday with my blunt thoughts, because I don't see how you can be sending all these people to these places to do what exactly? To do what? When our environment is in the state it is. I just don't get it. But I guess we don't talk enough. And maybe if we do talk, no one listens. The Ghanaian Times newspaper.
Ben, we do talk enough, except that the government doesn't want to listen, especially this particular matter. And it beats my imagination that this is a government that has all the credibility from the word go, that it will be bold enough to deal with an issue such as this. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised that we are in this state. But the fight continues. We will not sit down for the society to be destroyed. We will not. we will speak our minds and damn the person first.
Let's get into the stories in the papers. The Gan Times, we're going to do this very quickly. We have about 15 minutes to wrap. At Maiden Tourism Investment Summit, government earmarks 400 million Ghana cedis for tourism from next year to provide tourist attractions, renovate existing ones. That's according to Ken Oforiatta. Ghana signs $50 million emission reduction payment agreement at COP28. This is what we're good at, signing documents, nothing to show. Road carnage, 1,839 persons killed, 12,678 injured from January to October. That's according to the National Road Safety Authority, among others. Mr. David Osafo Adonting pictured there. And Ghana hosts 75th UN Peacekeeping Ministerial Confab in Accra. On the back page, work resumes on Kotokrom, Yahuima Road, and then Afariwa Military Hospital project revived. As always, we start and we stop and we leave projects. If you go around the country and you see the number of projects that have been left, some of them rotting, some of rotting away like Saglemi, some of them vandalized like Saglemi, where people have actually intentionally gone, taking away doors, cisterns and all of that. You go into the Ashanti region, you go into other places. I remember John Ejekum Kufuor and that housing bit he took, and how long it took before we saw anything emanating from there. We have educational projects in the bush, health projects in the bush going waste. And yet we say we have Agenda 111. We have the La hospital that has been taken down, and now members of that community have to travel far distances to get medical health care. If this country hasn't gone bonkers at some point, I don't know. And when you talk like this, some people will act like, the likes of K.T. Hammond will say, especially when you have a beard, that we are young people, coconut heads. But I don't know how I would refer to them with all their purported knowledge and the way they act. But let me get into the stories very quickly and bring some scope to it. So government will from next year commit over 400 million Ghana cedis to provide new tourist attraction sites while renovating existing ones. The Minister of Finance, Ken Oforiatta, disclosed in Accra yesterday. These tourist attractions, he said, will include building museums and rehabilitating attraction sites such as the Shire Hills, Molle National Park, Cape Coast, and Elmina Castles. The same Molle National Park that I hear is also open to, nowadays, some people are contemplating going there to mine. So we are tourism. I don't know whether mining is part of the tourism, but that is that. Then there's Ghana signs $50 million emission reduction payment agreement at COP28. The Forestry Commission, under the auspices of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, has signed emission reductions payment agreement with Emergent Forest Finance Accelerator Incorporated, that is Emergent, a US-based non-profit organization that serves as the convener and coordinator of the Lowering Emissions by Accelerating Forest Finance, that is the LEAF Coalition. So that's the latest there. 40 Arabic teachers sharpen skills, that's in Nima. And I've always said that, look, I attended this event yesterday, the Ghana Giving Summit. It was fantastic at the British Council, and congratulations to Reverend Emmanuel Mafo and Benedicta Safua for the great work they did there. And I see how why I bring this up. There was someone who, elaborated quite well, a Ghanaian in French, though he's been in many French-speaking and Francophone countries. And this just brings to mind the fact that we're so limited in Ghana when it comes to languages. It's one of our major problems, but we don't realize it, especially surrounded by French-speaking countries. But I'll wrap with the road carnage. 1,839 persons killed and 12,678 injured from January to October. Now, this figure was a result of 11,694 cases of road crashes reported under the year of review. This was disclosed at the 2023 Road Safety Christmas campaign launch on the theme, Stop Speeding, Stay Alive. Quick reflections, Doc.
Yeah, Ben, thanks for the opportunity again. Let me start with abandoned projects. We have a lot of them, and it's so worrying. If you read the Constitution, the directive principle of state policy gives us opportunity to continue from every project that previous government have left off. Is that what we are doing? Yet, we tell the whole world that we abide by the rules of the game, we are Democrats and all that. This is a simple requirement that any project started by previous government, whoever takes the reins of government, you continue from there. There is a good reason why they do that, and this is just open for everybody to see. We are not here to educate people who hold power on that. That state has put in a lot of resources in securing such projects. Why you allow it to rot? Why you allow it to lie fallow and the rest of them? Look at Seglemi. Look at it has become a field day for criminals, thieves, and the rest of them. Kufuor's building project was in the bush. I mean, what is happening to us? If you look at all the things, the buildings, the properties that we have in the bush, and you do audit of them, I'm not sure we'll go to IMF. I'm sure the figure will go beyond $3 billion. I am very, very sure. But are we here to ensure value for money? No. No. We don't want to do it. And we are always in pain to give credit when credit is due because the previous government has started a project, so you don't want to continue from there. Is it your bona fide property? Is the resources coming from your end or from the state? Come on. Let us, citizens, let me use the youth expression, shine our eyes, and such behavior, we rise up against it by voting against people who do this. That is the only way out, because when you talk, they will not listen. But when you vote, the vote will take them away like tsunami. That is the only way to go. Otherwise, we'll continue to lament and all that. The second issue of building museum parks and the rest of them, I support the government in this regard. It's a beautiful project. I am all for it. We need to what? Build in museums, build parks, strengthen the existing ones, and make it what? Attractive to people. Because there are a lot we can gain from tourism. People who do not have ideas about tourism, don't put them at ministerial positions to suggest things that do not work. I support things like this, museums and all that. Why can't you take a cue from United States of America, where every former president's home, they build, as soon as you leave office, they build a museum for you in your hometown. People travel there and then they go and see the place and all that. It's a source of what? Resources, revenue for the state. I visited Kennedy Museum in Boston, and the rest of them. We can do that. Can you imagine? This morning I was watching Nkrumah Mausoleum that you showed to me. Yes, the Nkrumah one, we have brought it to Accra. That's okay. But going forward, can't we go to Agnoga and build a museum for Rawlins? We go to Golu to build a museum for Liman. Let's go to, Buzier's place in Wenchi, build a museum. Somebody will fly from New York to Wenchi to see the things that Buzier left behind. So if the state is thinking along this line, I support the state through thick and thin. The parks. I want the state, as much as you want to develop the parks and all that, I'm sure they've taken into consideration people who are approaching the parks, who are encroaching, that's the word, encroaching the parks and abusing the parks. Let us kick them out of the system. And that means that the Forestry Department, Environmental Protection Agency, and all should rise up to the occasion to support the state in this cause. And we as a society must also stand firm before them, behind them. If we are able to do this, there are a lot we can gain in terms of revenue from this enterprise. The issue of language and the fact that we are limited in terms of language, I support your call. It's a good one. We need to be able to have knowledge in a number of languages because there is, there is benefit from having a multiple of languages. I was part of the journalists who accompanied President Kufuor to Yamoussoukro in 2001, where the conference, part of the conference, the meeting of ECOWAS heads there, they discussed the issue of expanding the frontiers of language within the sub-region to include the fact that French is going to be an important consideration in our academic, curricula. The department, the ministry is doing it bit, but we want more effort. I want to see a situation where French will be very, very, very pursued vigorously in this country. If you travel to countries and you realize how limited you are in terms of language, it's amazing. I was in Switzerland, Geneva, and I realized that, look, I've done harm to myself about what? The use of French. You go everywhere, bonjour, bonjour, monsieur, and I said, come on, the effect is here. Now that we have seen the effect, let us correct it. Let's introduce our students to more foreign languages, and it will serve them good. Nowadays, I don't hear about the speaking or the learning of German as a language and all that. When we're growing up in the 90s and all that.
The Goethe Institute close to NAFTI is still very much alive. In fact, I did my A1 there, and I still see people, going there to learn. I think sometimes it's, there are a number of Ghanaians who are also schooling in Germany through is it DAD and others. But you're right, it's not much attention is paid to languages like German. But every language added is an advantage.
German, this language to Spanish. Look at the whole of Latin America. They speak Spanish.
The United States, the second most prominent language is Spanish.
Yes. Europe, come on. These are things that we need to focus our attention on, and so that we'll be able to build capacity here and support our society. Right. Language is what? Power. And language is everything. We need to get into this.
Yeah. Right. Let's quickly get into some other papers. The Finder newspaper, I'll just focus on a few. I'll read all three major headlines. Stories we've done, I'll not get to. Efutu Sacred Forest not sold for lithium mining. That's according to Afenyo Markin. HDS data confirms Baumia's position on individual credit scores. And there's Oforiatta urges swift support for climate vulnerable countries. And when the support comes, what do we do with it? Anyway, so the Member of Parliament for Efutu, Mr. Alexander Afenyo Markin, representing the MPP, has strongly denied allegations made by some members of the NDC regarding the sale of the sacred forest of Efutu for lithium mining. Speaking before the parliamentary press corps, Afenyo Markin labeled the accusations as false, emphasizing that there was no truth to the claim that the sacred forest, traditionally used for deer hunting during the Abwachere festival, had been sold for lithium mining. Mr. Afenyo Markin, I know you. I pray that what you're saying is right. We believe that it is right. And we'll have a discussion on that later on the show. XDS data confirms Baumia's position on individual credit scores. A leading credit bureau in Ghana has clarified that it has not produced individual credit scores in the country. Now, while the company has the capability of generating individual credit scores, it has faced challenges due to the lack of a unique identifier. This is something that has stoked a lot of conversation. Imani Africa has waded into it, saying the vice president got it completely wrong. XDS data is coming out to say we have the capability. We've not necessarily done that. The vice president says we'll get that done, whatever that means. But anyway, those are some stories there. Let me add something from the Daily Guide and get your reaction. Now, judge dismissed over misconduct. That story is on page 6. Pictured there, Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu and AG appeals Galamsey Queen lenient sentence. Well, they are up there in the fray. Whatever happens, we do. I've got to the point where nowadays nothing surprises me in Ghana, and I'm not going to stress too much about it. You'll get your blood pressure up for nothing, while some people are, doing whatever they will. Anyway, Let me just bring you the judge story. The Jasikan Circuit Court Judge, Alfred Kwabena Asiedu, has been dismissed from the Judicial Service for his inappropriate conduct in the handling of a divorce case brought before him. His dismissal followed a petition by Singari Diana Sadia to the Chief Justice on January 16 this year, accusing the judge of abuse of power, sexual exploitation, malicious prosecution, and impropriety. Now, in line with the disciplinary procedures of the service, the petition was transferred to the Disciplinary Committee of the Judicial Council, which investigated the allegations made against the judge. And now he's been dismissed. Quick reactions.
I'll start from that story. Kudos to the judicial system to rid it of these individuals who want to undermine the cause of justice. There are rules that are used to govern the conduct of people in every public office. And once you get it wrong, I'm afraid you will not be spared. I support the judiciary on this call. It's a good thing. They must also extend it to other areas to make sure that we continue to have trust in the judiciary. If you look at CDD report and the rest of them, one of the institutions that suffers trust problems is the judiciary. So all these things are effort to make sure that the judiciary is kept in a level that is honorable and is also fit for purpose. So I support that call. The issue of lithium and the story surrounding lithium exploration in Efutu sacred forest and all that. I am happy that the Honorable Deputy Majority Leader is saying that it's not true. I hope and pray that it is never true. And I am sure all of us are going to monitor that system, because one of the finest festivals you can have on the surface of Ghana is the Abuachire Festival. By all standards, it's excellent, it's beautiful, and you'll love it. Yes, so where they start the process to make everybody happy, I'm not sure that is where we want to find minerals. In any case, look at all the minerals we have mined in this country. How far have we used them to benefit our society? Now, we want to destroy our own cultural environment using this mining business and all that. I know Mr. Afenyomarko is a strong man. He'll put his foot down because he's a man of integrity. He doesn't want what he has said to turn out to be a different thing. So, but we as a society must also rise up to the occasion and be vigilant. And that is where Sir Price said that vigilance is the price of liberty. If we want to have liberty, and that is freedom, we need to be vigilant. Right. Shine our eyes to our environment so that we can get the best.
Doc, always so refreshing. How's your fish business doing though? Right before we go, in a few seconds.
You have to visit the home. I have a number of fish in the house, and they're doing so well, and I'm so excited that I want one day the government of Ghana would take up this project and say, look, can we extend it to secondary schools and all that? And people like us will support so that we provide food for schools. That government will not come in. We'll generate IGF there and support the school and support community. I challenge government that people like us are ready to support the cause of government in that direction so that this school feeding problem will be a thing of the past.
You remind me of back then, we're producing yam, all kinds of things, school farms. You produce all of them. So the burden on government to do other things was limited. Sometimes we would even be able to sell them and make something out of it. You can call them IGFs, internally generated funds that the school could use. But here we are. But anyway.
Ben, I'm telling you just a quick one. I'm telling you, when I was a student at the Kropong PTC Demonstration Junior Secondary School, we're making farms and we're selling to support the cause of the school. Sectec, we had a lot of school farms, and it's not only these schools, it's all over this country. Can you imagine we take up this responsibility that, look, let's produce fish, let's produce poultry, let's produce yam and all that. Look, where will government come in to support us when we have arable lands lying fallow and all that? Come on, the good people of this country. Let's save our country.
I totally agree with you. Something that just came to mind. I feel if we did that extensively, I dare say that program would yield more results than planting for food and jobs. I said it.
Oh, yes.
If we got that right, that alone in our institutions, including the colleges of education, SHS, it would yield more than planting for food and jobs. We like giving titles.
I am challenging government. Let government extend a hand of invitation to people like us who will come and rise up to the occasion. and will make this country food
food self-sufficient,
protect the food security of this country. Right. Come on, we have a lot. God has blessed us with arable land, ideas, and all that. Why are we sitting down and getting rotting when ideas are bound? Africa is the richest, yet the poorest. We don't want to support this statement by Ali Mazul. Let's change the rhetorics.
Dr. Kwame Asasante, thank you very much for joining the conversation this morning. He is a political scientist, lecturer of political science, and of course, director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Before we get into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helped us to bring you this segment. And here's what they're offering you if you're a man, especially past the age of 40 or even in your late 30s. Prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Locate them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomo Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hansua, and the Siama Nzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the end of the news review, I'd like to say a very good morning to a certain Nanabana. If you're watching, good morning to you. Sports is up next.
In delivering the much-anticipated 2023 budget, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta confirmed the obvious. He officially unmasked the nature of Ghana's debt portfolio. According to him, Ghana was at a high risk of debt distress, and the debt levels were unsustainable. Unlike our 16th enrollment in 2015, Ghana's unsustainable debt position was certainly a huge obstacle in obtaining an IMF deal. This means a lot of conditions must be met. According to the fund, in cases where the country's debt is assessed as unsustainable, the IMF is precluded from providing financing unless the member takes steps to restore debt sustainability, including seeking a debt restructuring from its creditors. IMF's message was very simple: restructure your debt or no bailout package. Ghana was out of the Eurobond market, and IMF looked like the only option. No more foreign grants, and at this point, debt restructuring looked inevitable.
As a middle-income country, you will be we were being weaned of grants. You saw the slide? Yeah. Yes. And we'll be weaned of concessional financing. Actually, I was the minister who, would I say, under the what, to receive the letter from the World Bank and the African Development Bank telling us that we had become middle-income country. We couldn't borrow and repay over 40 years. We could only borrow and repay over 25 years.
After considering all the conditions and the precarious nature of Ghana's debt portfolio, Ken Ofori-Atta in the 2023 budget hinted government was planning to carry out a debt treatment to create enough fiscal space for a $3 billion extended credit facility bailout package from the Bretton Woods institution. Investors began to doubt the earlier assurances given by the president, and subsequent happenings heightened their fears.
No individual or institutional investor, including pension funds, in government treasury bills or instruments, will lose their money as a result of our ongoing IMF negotiations. There will be no haircuts.
Prior to this assurance, government had borrowed heavily from the domestic market, and the domestic component of the country's debt stock had reached an unsustainable level.
All the deposits and things that are there, unless government significantly increases interest rate, which would increase the cost of borrowing. Remember, compensation plus interest, and throw the budget into complete, they are not going to get the money from the domestic market. The non-residents who were buying our bonds exited a long time ago. It's in the 2020 budget. We're in the 2020-21 budget. It's there. Bank of Ghana has said it. So the non-residents packed off and went long ago. They were helping to deepen the domestic market. And we know it, right? It's on your websites and others. Government is not able to borrow from the domestic market all the money it needs. Either it offers higher or it cuts.
President Akufo-Addo's big assurance of no haircut brought enormous relief to the investor community. Little did they know that they were in for a big shock of their lives. Barely 5 days after the finance minister confirmed Ghana's decision to carry out a debt operation, an international credit rating agency, Moody's, dropped Ghana's long-term sovereign bonds rating to deeper junk territories, bringing the number of downgrades and revisions to at least 7 in 2022 alone. For Professor Bopin, the investors were skeptical about the president's assurances.
Stanley, the market knew the president wasn't speaking the truth. Right after the president made a statement, the reactions were more or less to reject the statements. Okay, and therefore, my expectation is that any investor who probably took a decision on the back of that wasn't an investor, was probably a lotto doctor.
Then came the biggest announcement in 2022, less than 2 months after the president had urged investors to ignore any information of a possible haircut. On 4th December 2022, the government fulfilled its sovereign component of the bargain. It finally announced a debt operation called Domestic Debt Exchange, which outlined the nature of debt restructuring for domestic creditors. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta revealed the program was to invite holders of domestic debt to voluntarily exchange approximately 137 billion cedis of the domestic notes and bonds of the Republic, including ESLA and Dacha bonds, for a package of new bonds to be issued by the Republic. At this point, investors intensified their search for answers. Was a promise of there will be no haircut just a way of calming nerves, or another clever way to swindle investors?
Why can't you be very specific and tell us that if you don't participate, you lose your money? Then some of us will commit suicide rather than go through the pain.
Oh, please don't contemplate that.
I'm 66 in March, my brother or my son. I'll be 66. And there are so many people. Maybe I can survive, but I know friends who work in the public service who are doing nothing presently. All the investment are out there, and you're telling them without interfacing with them on one-to-one or giving them information that take it or leave it.
Organized labor was the first group to taste government's pill of disappointment. Government had decided to include pension funds in the debt treatment. The group had to fight government for weeks to exempt them from the program. Other government assurances to investors couldn't stand the test of time, as government made a sharp U-turn on December 23, 2022, putting the hopes of individual bondholders into disarray. It had revised its decision to exclude individual bondholders in the debt exchange program. An amended clause contained in the legal document governing the program revealed that the type of investors that can participate in the invitation to exchange had been expanded to now include individual investors. This came as a big shock to these persons holding government securities in the form of bonds. Like most investors, they had relied on both President Akufo-Addo and Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta's assurance of an exemption. President Akufo-Addo had information at his beck and call. He has speechwriters and researchers who have the responsibility of helping him deliver accurate information. The president read from a prepared speech, so why would he get it so wrong?
He read from a prepared speech. How could he get it so wrong? But it's been a year since the government introduced its domestic debt exchange program. Now, this was done purportedly to protect the economy and enhance the capacity to service our public debts effectively. It was met, like we all recall, with very stiff opposition, for which reason there were some delays in the entire project. There had to be engagement, town halls even, if you like. But a year on, what are the lessons we have learned? This is the first time we're going down this road. What lessons have we learned? Professor Lord Mensah is an associate professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. He joins the conversation. We have Dr. Richmond Etuahene, a banking consultant who is behind also one of the documents we're going to be looking at today. Dr. Saad Idrisu is an economist, Louisiana Economic Development. He joins the conversation as well. And in the studio, Isaac Kofi Ejay, data analyst, in-house statistician, and more. Good morning, Ike.
Good morning, Ben.
All right. And let me also say good morning to our guests via Zoom. Prof, Dr. Etiahene. Okay. Dr. Etiahene, can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Idrisu, are you with us?
Morning. Yes, please. Good morning.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let me just have Kofi situate the conversation right here in the studio as we get into this. And we're looking at 1 year on. And there's this, let me just give you your flowers. There's this document out, 1 year on lessons from the domestic debt exchange and its impact on the economy. And it was authored by Dr. Richmond Etiahene, who joins the conversation, a banking consultant, KB Frimpong, and guess who? Yes, the man sitting by my side now, Isaac Kofi Ejay. To kickstart the conversation, I mean, there was the bit about the back and forth. Do we need the DDEP? At a point, it became clear we did need the DDEP. But how would we go about it? That was the thorny issue. And then there was the issue of coupons and who would get what, when, and how. That's what they teach you in political science. 1 year on, if you wanted to give me a summary, what has happened? How have we fared? Are we learning any lessons?
Yeah, of course, I think that we've learned some lessons, and it's now clear that a government's first initial, strategy to do this whole thing unilaterally did not really work. It brought a lot of, setbacks to the DDEP program. And we've always had this famous quotation from the IMF that says that, performing a domestic debt restructuring is like having a surgery.
Right.
You only do it when it is necessary. And when you are doing it, you do it right for the first time. Do it right at the first time, else you come back doing it over and over again. In our case, we probably did not know what we were in for because probably it was our first time. Nobody was actually used to exchanging debt or doing haircuts and restructuring.
Right.
So because it was in the domestic space, the government felt it could use a unilateral means to probably bulldoze everybody along, but it turned out that it did not work. We had individual bondholders opposing pension bondholders, and then also even banks and insurance companies. It took government, restructuring of the terms and conditions, the MOUs, for the banks to now come along or to come to the negotiation table to participate. So I am looking at the old bonds that were actually exchanged for this particular new ones that we are talking about. So for the old bonds, we had, a coupon rate of 19.1%. The new bonds, which is the one that has been exchanged, now reduce the coupon from 19.1% to 9.1%. That's a haircut over there.
Yeah.
So from 19.1% to 9.1%. If you look at the average maturity...
I guess at a point, it became not about getting a haircut, but about which haircut you were going to... Whether it was going to be Punk, Sakura...
As for Punk, we were never going to get...
Punk, yeah, it was out of the question. There's no way they were going to lift you high. You would... But not even with Punk, they shave the other sides and then they
leave the top. Maybe some people got that because remember that in the final announcement given by the finance minister, we saw that some people were excluded from the DDEP.
Curiously.
Exactly, and that cost us about 40 billion Ghana cedis. We said that some people were not eligible to participate. Others were allowed to exchange their bonds for treasury bills. All of those people, if you quantify, we looked at some 40 billion Ghana cedis that we had to let go because of this exclusion, thing that we did in 2022. But I was talking about the average maturity period of the old bonds that were exchanged.
Right.
3.8 years. Now the new bonds look at 8.3. So just look at it. 3.8.
About 5 years.
So it's just like you swap the figures. So 3.8. The new one is 8.3. The coupon rate, we've spoken about it, 19 to 9%. But let's look at the participation rates of the bonds that we are talking about. The general participation rate of government was around 85%. But if you look at the final exchange document that was presented by the finance minister to the investor community, you will see that the participation rate amongst treasury bonds, ESLA bonds, Dache bonds were around 91%. There was another one, 95%, US denominated local bonds. So the investors who came, the foreign investors who came to our our space, our domestic space, to come and invest, buy bonds, were also given a haircut. The participation rate there was 92%. Cocoa bills, 97%. And then we also have the non-marketable debt held by Bank of Ghana. Can you imagine? 100%. It means that everything
went to them. They took the hit.
They took the hit. I mean, if you do the revised DDEP, the impairments, you see that the Bank of Ghana probably took a haircut of more than 50% in this whole debt restructuring that we are talking about, Ben.
Let me come to Dr. Etiahene, because you actually partook in this research piece. Doc, so looking at this DDEP as a banking consultant, a year on, even before we get into any lessons that may have been learned, what would you say has been the gains that we have achieved, from the DDEP so far? And are we at a place that you would have expected we would be, economically speaking, on the back of the DDEP?
Thank you very much. I think we haven't reached where we're supposed to reach at all. I think it's the year on, and the ramification or the implication will not be felt as at now. But if you look at the figures, how the figures has been changed. I think for 3 times or 4 times, the whole debt restructuring has been changed. And you realize that initially, the banks were going to suffer a major haircut. That was very, very dangerous. And I think after Marrakesh, the minister decided with his consultant, financial consultant, decided to relook the whole thing again. And they came up with these, the last bit of shifting of the goalpost, which means that the banks have now been relieved a bit of it. The serious charge, as Isaac said, is on the Bank of Ghana, cocoa bills, and then the foreign denominated bonds. But as to say we have reached the point, we haven't, because literature has shown that any debt exchange that do not back up with a deep fiscal consolidation, what I mean by fiscal consolidation, trimming the budget, trimming the government expenditure, reducing it to the barest minimum. If we don't take care, as happened in Jamaica 3 years after they did 2010, by 2013, they had to face the same bullet again. So I would prefer that government would take a critical look, reducing the expenditure to the barest minimum. But what did we see last, maybe not long ago? We have a public sector salary wages of 23%. Well, these are all having a physical implication for the budget. So maybe the government would have to look at their own expenditure, reducing the numbers, cutting down so many things, so that we'll be able to meet the other aspect of it. Because debt exchange is not only about that, it's about also physical discipline. And we have never been physically disciplined. And my only worry now is that as we enter into the election year, literature have shown, results have shown for 2008, 20, all the years that we have elections, we have had a spillover. We haven't been able to maintain the 5% of physical discipline that we talk about. So I'm wondering how we're going to achieve this. And if not, that is not the end of the road. I'm not predicting it. But if we don't keep the physical consolidation to the barest minimum, we will come back to this table once more, maybe in a year or 2 years' time. That is what I will say for the time being.
Just a quick one, because you say that we've never been fiscally disciplined, especially in an electoral year. If memory serves, in 2016, it's been touted that we actually did what had to be done, especially on the back of an IMF program. Is that not correct, Dr. Etiahene?
Well, what I know is the first one, I mean, if you let us go back to last year, we have it about 11 point something before we went to 15.8. what I remember during the I've forgotten the years. Most of the years, 2016, I don't think we achieved the 5% discipline that we were talking about. I don't know where it's coming from, but if you look at the years that we've had these elections, we haven't been able to achieve the set target of 5% that we set for ourselves.
Let me come to Professor Mensah now. A year on, we've had, a year on since embracing the DDEP. Reminds me of this song. So we've tied, our cloths to the DDEP, embraced the IMF. How do you feel we have fared, especially on the back of what Dr. Tiahene says, that we've never been fiscally disciplined and we are entering an electoral year? How have we fared?
Okay, right. Hello.
Yes, Prof.
Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Right. So we went into this debt exchange for a purpose, and I always look at it from two objectives. We went in there to reduce, government's, debt burden, and then also find a way to reduce interest rates in the economy. At a time when interest rate of government bonds were hovering around 21, 22%, it was expected that when we finish, debt exchange, interest rate will reduce drastically. And if I say interest rate, I'm looking at interest rate across all the maturities, including, treasury bills, and then extending it to government, long-term bonds. Now, if you look at the budget that was read for 2024, clearly you could see that the debt exchange did not feed into the budget, because in 2023 we're looking at an interest payment of around 53 billion, which in 2024 we are projecting around 55 billion, taking into consideration what we call the foreign debt, which has some kind of increment as a result of foreign exchange depreciation and all those. Clearly, you could see that, the debt exchange, which I was expecting that after a debt exchange, your interest payment will reduce drastically. We did not see that. And so effectively, the impact of the debt exchange on our expenditure is not being felt as, expected. So, and we were still in the horizon of having, a yield curve where, short-term interest rate, turns out to be so high, sometimes double or triple of the long-term interest rate. I'm talking about, government, government bonds that were restructured, which liquidity has become a problem because of investor confidence in, reduction in investor confidence in government bonds. So all investors are looking at, short-term instrument, and government is also fueling it. Government is fueling it by reading budget with high expenditure, with a huge budget deficit. The current budget deficit seems to be lower than, a year before's budget, but that is more or less, a way of dribbling, Ghanaians with the numbers. Let me put it that way. I stated this, yesterday, and I'm going to repeat that. We had a budget deficit, of about 5.8, percent going into 2024, which is way below what we targeted, last year. In effect, it tells you that we're being fiscally, disciplined. We are improving on our fiscal discipline, but that is just, something to deceive, us, because we've raised, revenue, and we've raised, our expenditure, target. So effectively, that 5.8 that we see is nothing. And in a way, it tells you that government wants to spend. And any signal of spending, when you have lost all your avenues of financing, with the exception of treasury bills, even the treasury bills, investors are doing the 91-day more than the 1 year. It tells you that you should tone down your, expenditure. You have to reduce your expenditure. That is where, Dr. Chiang is talking about, the fiscal discipline, which is very, very important, after your debt exchange. After debt exchange, you are not having your debt payment reduced, in your budget. You're not having interest rate, reduced. Then the question is, what is the essence of the debt exchange? Okay, what was the essence of the debt exchange?
So as you pose that question, then I would ask you: has the debt exchange lived up to expectations? Has it been useful? Has it been useful?
Not at all after the 1 year. Not at all. And I think that's the purpose of this discussion. Not at all. You see, I was expecting that the debt exchange will correct the yield curve after we go through the debt exchange. And what I mean by yield curve is that the interest rate structures with their maturities. When you take the short term, it needs to have lower rate than the long term, which is about the 10%, 9% that we are talking about. We're not seeing that. The reason why we are not seeing this is that government is always on the market looking for money. And the investors' confidence in long-term instruments has also gone down. And as a result of that, the investor is always, ready to invest in government short-term instrument. And even if somebody wants to do the 1 year, he tries to do 91, wait for more information before he calls in for a rollover of 182, and then possibly, continue to roll over. So the 91 is more concentrated, and you don't grow economy with that. So I'm surprised we are even projecting huge GDP growth. The huge GDP growth we are projecting is mainly at the back of government spending, not businesses spending and individual spending, because interest rate is not coming down any moment from now. Look, we've been in this situation before. We had a situation where short-term instruments were calling for higher rate than long-term instruments some time ago. And what did we do? Because at that time we had international credibility, we were able to go to the Eurobond market, which over there we're borrowing at maximum of 70 years, and the then finance minister, which is Setepe, used to coin a term called smart borrowing. Smart borrowing in a sense that we're borrowing long-term from the international market to come and use part of the money to offset, short-term, investment in Ghana, and then we're able to increase, the horizon of the investor community from medium to long term as a result of government shifting its demands for funds into the long term. You don't grow economy with the kind of interest rate structures we have. And I was thinking after the debt exchange, we're going to correct that, because you can't use 1 year treasury bill to build roads. You can't use 1 year treasury bill to construct, hospitals for individual. You cannot use 1 year treasury bill to do school feeding. I'm talking about social projects like school feeding, where the returns are so in the long term. So effectively, I can tell you that this economy, as we speak now, that we're thinking after the debt exchange, we'll see some signals of improvement. We're not seeing it because all the numbers are clear. It shows on our face that, we are more or less in an economy where you cannot raise money in the long term. And every economy that you cannot raise money for a long term, that economy does not grow. So the growth projections that we are doing, I wonder where the numbers are coming from. And so I would say that, yes, indeed, we did the debt exchange. Ghanaian investor, typical investor, has suffered all right, but, we're not seeing the benefit. And
right.
You see, the cost to household, as far as this, debt exchange was concerned, was so huge. That was when a typical Ghanaian got to feel, the economic mismanagement at his doorstep. Previously, when we talked about the macro indicators, we talked about this, people think, oh, these are, economists just throwing out numbers. But then I was telling myself that one day that the mismanagement will hit your doorstep, where you have inflation so high that you are not even sure of your salary, what it can buy in the next month. That is when you appreciate what we project into the future. So effectively, we did the debt exchange, but I can tell you that, the benefit, we're not realizing it as a result of government's posture. Government posture has been that government always wants to make money available to himself and then spend. And that is what has brought us this far. Well, the moment we moved out of the IMF program, we saw that signal. We even celebrated, the IMF, exiting, thinking the fiscal rules that we set for ourselves, thinking the fiscal committee that the president said are going to be active on the grounds to put the government in line, to check the government so that we keep the trajectory as far as, the IMF budget deficit projections were concerned. But we didn't. We went haywire. We went in our own way, thinking spending is what will grow the economy. But I mean, excuse my language, we've messed up big time. The hole that we find ourselves in, coming out will be a problem. There's no quick fix. There's no quick fix as we speak now. The only quick fix will be to look at long term how you can constantly reduce your expenditure along the line, and then sensitize Ghanaians that look, when it comes to goods and services, when it comes to capital expenditure, we have to tone down as we speak, because those are the discretionary expenditures we can control. If we don't do that and be transparent enough, trust me, we can't, come out from this, economic situation that we find ourselves.
Prof, hold for me. Let me now bring in Dr. Saad Idrisu. Now, on the back of all the borrowing that Professor Mensah speaks of and where we find ourselves, he has also made mention of the fact that, and I would just remind you, even when the finance minister was speaking on the back of the DDEP and all of that, there was this conversation where he spoke even about being able to go back to the capital market, which then sends a signal about our intent in terms of spending. But if you look at even the T-bill auctions, as of just the past month, government borrowed 15.32 billion Ghana cedis. What signal does that paint as in respect of how far we have come on the back of the DDEP?
Thank you, Ben, and good morning again to you and your listeners as well as my co-panelists. Well, let me first say that government actually didn't plan before introducing the DDEP itself. When I say government didn't plan, at least there wasn't broader consultations with the whole idea. So it seems like government rushed into the whole implementation of the DDEP. Initially, some of us kicked against it. We spoke vehemently against that, and I even went and suggested a debt swap as alternative that the government could look at, but unfortunately, all didn't come into being. And you could actually say that even as we speak 1 year down the lane, the economy is still experiencing the negative impact of the DDEP program. And Ben, as from the economic point of view, let me just show you this report. I'm not sure, it is available on the Bank of Ghana website. It is the summary of economic and financial data, November 2023. To actually demonstrate to you, or to actually show you more, I'm going to use government's own data to just point out certain things to you. If you go to page 2 of the reports, it's available on Bank of Ghana, so anybody interested can literally look at it. If you go to page 2 of the report, which talks about the real sector indicators, you realize that before the DDEP, that was fourth quarter of 2022, that's December 2022, you realize that our GDP in real terms was growing at, was 48.7 billion Ghana cedis. But after the DDEP, all along to second quarter, currently as we speak, it has declined to 42.1 billion Ghana cedis. If you're looking at it in terms of the overall growth, without including the oil sector, excluding oil, the economy was growing at 4.3%. That is by the fourth quarter. As we speak, the economy is growing at 3.2%. So before DDEP, we were growing at 4.3%. That is excluding the oil sector. And after DDEP, along the line, second quarter, we are 3.2%. Now, the question is, within 6 months to end the quarter, which is the fourth quarter, or 6 months to end the year, are we sure that the economy will be able to grow to the pre-levels it was growing before government introduced the DDEP? So if anyone is telling you that DDEP has actually helped the economy, it has boosted up, believe me, they are lying to you, because the figures themselves from the government-owned databases are pointing that the economy is rather declining as we speak. In terms of real GDP, in terms of real GDP growth, and in terms of even industry growth, the industries are growing at negative 1.9% as we speak, based on the data. That is page 2. If you go to the same data, page 5, the same report, page 5 of the report, it tells you about the exchange rate. Now, if you look at the exchange rate, as at the time government was doing the DDEP, the exchange rate CD to the dollar was 8.57 to the dollar. That is December 2022. Along the line, right now, all the way to November, the exchange rate is 11.56. So are we going forward or are we going backwards? So it tells you that the DD...
But there's also been a drop. There's also been a drop. At a point, it went as high as about 16. If you're looking at even the dollar, it went as high as about 16 on the market.
I'm talking of the point the government did the DDEP. We are looking at DDEP and after DDEP. What has been the benefit?
Right. So I get the point you're making, but I'm saying that within that period as well, the exchange rate hits that high. So even if some months down the line, about a year down the line, it's at 11 point something, which I agree is still very unhealthy for everybody. Would that not be a gain?
It doesn't even compare to the December level that we had with 8.57.
Right.
All right. And if you come back to the main depth itself on page 8, that, like I said, this report is available on Bank of Ghana website. That is the November report. If you go to page 8 of the report, it clearly tells you that even with our domestic debt, as at the time we were doing the debt restructuring domestic, it was 205.4 billion Ghana cedis. Currently, as we speak, that is September, according to the report, our domestic debt has ballooned to 240 billion Ghana cedis. So it clearly tells you that we haven't actually realized anything from the DDEP program, with aside the IMF bailout that the government had. And with the IMF bailout, even with the first 600 payment that we received, you are not realizing its benefits on the economy. You are not seeing, improvement in this macro indicator. You are not seeing improvement in welfare. And you are not seeing improvement in market conditions and the overall health of the economy. Because at the point of implementing the DDEP, government told us there wasn't going to be a haircut. But at the end of the day, the banks took almost 14% haircut. The Bank of Ghana itself took almost about 50% haircut, resulting in losses in these banks. GCB Bank resulted in a loss of almost 50 million cedis, dollars rather, $50 million according to Bloomberg. The central bank itself had a 60 billion cedi loss, right? If you are putting out your macro projections for growth, you need the banking sector to be able to solidify the growth. You need the banking sector to serve as a financier to the private sector to stir the growth that you are looking for. But here is the case, your DDEP rather collapsed your banking sector. The DDEP rather kept our banks in distress. So the banks that could have loaned out to the private sector to stir up employment, to stir up productivity, and to stir up the general growth that they are looking for, we weren't seeing it.
Right.
And with government promise of a 1.5 billion financial stability fund, as of July, it wasn't implemented. By October, the deadline came in passing. As we speak, nothing of that sort has yet to materialize. So you realize that, it seems the government itself, excuse me to say, it's not actually looking to achieve its own growth targets that it has set for itself, and even the growth targets that is, putting in the IMF report and all that. Because without the financial sector, believe me, we can't achieve the growth targets.
Right.
I don't know how government intends to manufacture the figures. With a collapsing banking sector, with a collapsing financial sector, you can't achieve that. Okay. Basically, the private sector is collapsing. So, it's just unfortunate that we kind of find ourselves in an environment that people tend to rather be quiet instead of speaking up. But the financial sector is collapsing. Even with Even with all that is happening, the policy rate is still high, resulting in a higher lending rate, higher cost of borrowing. So how do you promote macroeconomic stability?
So that's the question. That's the question we're all trying to wrap our minds around. Let me get to Dr. Etiahene, because there's also the talk about the hit that our central bank took. Yes, the other banks took lots of heat from the DDEP and other, structural imbalances. But the central bank itself, in cushioning government, in cushioning the sector, because it is the regulator, took quite a hit of about 50%. And I just want to find out from you, what does that mean for our central bank by way of effect, really, in this economy?
Thank you very much once again. And thank Professor Lord Mensah and Dr. Idris. I think what they've all said is true, because currently, as Professor Mensah said, there is a crowding out in the system. The private sector is not going to grow at all, because, like, if you listen to Prof. Mensah, what he said, and what Dr. Said said. But let me come to Bank of Ghana and what has happened to it. I think after the first DDEP, about 3 times they did, which I have followed critically with my research and reviews and the quantitative and analysis that I have done. I think they realized that the first DDEP, the banks took a hit. At least first there was 41 billion. They revised it to 30 billion. And then they realized that the way the shareholders, especially the international, the bodies from South Africa, from England and Nigeria, were complaining of recapitalization. I say they came back again. And they did this last review, which has reduced the impact from the banks of 41 and shifted that impact basically to Bank of Ghana. So the banks are now going to suffer about, if you look at it, it's about 7.3 billion. And the Bank of Ghana is going to take the hit of that 34 billion. And that would, people will say that policy stance. No, I agree with them that it's not insolvent. But if you look at it critically, the literature clearly says that it will affect monetary policy regime. It can even affect the lender of last resort, whereby you give emergency liquidity support, or when we do the repurchase agreement for the banks, because most of the asset with them has actually been reduced. So when people say that it's not going to affect the banking sector, maybe supervision, maybe. But when you come to the areas like lender of last resort and the purchasing agreement we have to do when one is in trouble, it is going to affect the banks. And we have to agree to it. And that is not the story alone. If you look at the losses, it will take such a long time for Bank of Ghana to do a retaining of profitability to be able to bring the banks in the profit levels. And if the banks decided to go to the government to borrow, to government for support, then the fiscal discipline would also come to there. Then the government would have to go about the fiscal line. So we are torn between, I won't say the devil and the angel. We are torn seriously. People say it's nothing. But you see, we have been very fortunate that there hasn't been rundown. Liquidity is flowing around because of information asymmetry. One thing about Ghanaian banking sector or financial sector, there's an information asymmetry in it. What I mean is that people are not financially literate. So when Dr. Samed was saying, he said that people do not, Professor Mensah said that people do not understand. If people get to understand what has happened, there would have been a serious thing. And if there was a serious rundown, what would Bank of Ghana do? So the losses have physical implication. It has also some policy implication. The role that they have to play when they're critical, because today, if about 7 of the banks decide they don't have liquidity and they go to Bank of Ghana, I'm wondering whether they will be able to do that, because they have the asset actually impaired and eroded. So the asset has been reduced. How would they be able to support? Those who say that must also look at the physical aspect of it. You see, when you make losses, it's either you have a good retainership, when you retain more profitability. But if you look at Bank of Ghana figures, it will take them years and years if they want to maintain their profit. They definitely one day will have to go to the government for support. Other than that, it's good in the eyes of them. But what is it? It also has a reputational issue. The reputational issue where people don't understand is that Bank of Ghana does not keep correspondent bank relationship in Accra. They keep it with Fed. They keep it with Bank of England. They keep it with the Bundesbank. These are the banks that hold your foreign reserves. And if you yourself are not good, can you ever even begin to do businesses with you? People should have these things in, because literature says that it has some implication for the central banks. And I hope they will appreciate it and they won't say that people are speaking against them. These are the people who have seen it before and telling us, and we should be able to appreciate some of the things that some of these people have been saying. So they can say it is nothing, but like Professor Mensah said, and Said said, in Ghana, when you speak about it, you either one or against them. But these are the real issues. These are researchers. These are people who have studied it and read literature and confirming what the literature has said. It has happened to other countries. So when we are saying it, we are saying it with a good intent, not any malice.
Dr. Chi, I think hold for me. Professor Mensah, before I come to you, very briefly, Kofi Ajay, I just want you to walk us through. So Ghana's debt after the DDEP, before and after, if you like. And then let's look at this. There was a lot of talk about how the DDEP would impact the private sector, how it would crowd out the private sector in terms of staving it or starving it of funds. What do you see a year on? What is the picture on the back of those?
Well, so let's use the same data, the summary of macro and financial data produced by the Bank of Ghana, this very recent one in November 2023. And we are looking at the country's total public debt when DDEP took off and now. So it was December, around the same period that we launched the DDEP. The time that we did launch the DDEP, our debt was 446.3 billion Ghana cedis. Now, if you look at it, 10 months on, we are looking at a debt portfolio of 567.3 billion Ghana cedis. It means that after the DDEP, we've added more than 121 billion Ghana cedis to the public debt stock. If you convert to dollars using $1 to 10 cedis, we are looking about $12 billion in a span of just 10 months after DDEP. Now, because the DDEP focused on the domestic debt, let's look at the domestic debt as at the time that we were doing the DDEP. It was around, 205.4 billion Ghana cedis, just like Dr. Saad Idris said. Now, 9 months on or 10 months on, we are looking at 240.6 billion Ghana cedis. That means government has added more than 35 billion Ghana cedis, which is about $3.5 billion in a span of 10 months after it did the DDEP. Also, you spoke about the impact on the private sector. Let's go to the MPC document, the press statement that was issued by the Bank of Ghana, and see what the DDEP did to the private sector. So I'm going to read verbatim. It says that credit to the private sector contracted during the review period. It says banks continue to deploy their resources towards short-term investment, just like Dr. Lord Mensah said. Banks continue to deploy their resources towards short-term investment. It means that the banks are now going after treasury bills, Ben. If banks are going after treasury bills, it means they would like to put their money, buy government papers or bonds. They will not lend
instead of giving to the private sector.
And you see, Bank of Ghana said it. It says that they are deploying their resources towards short-term investments as opposed to extension of credit in response to the increased risks associated with lending following the deterioration of macroeconomic conditions and the impact of what the DDEP. This is not my own words. This is according to Bank of Ghana. Now listen to it. It says private sector credit contracted by 7.5% in October 2023, as against 57.3% growth recorded in the same period in 2022. So in the same period in 2022, the rate at which banks were giving, commercial banks were lending to the private sector, the growth rate was a whopping 57.3%. Now you are looking at a contraction of 7.5%. So to
that
move
means
from
less, far less money.
Exactly. To move from a growth rate of 57.3 to a contraction, a negative 7.5%.
That is a whopping figure.
Exactly, in a year. And this is according to the Bank of Ghana. It's in the MPC press statement released on this same month, last month, exactly.
It'll be interesting to find out how this has impacted business.
Exactly. So,
really?
Well, if the Bank of Ghana is telling you that there's a contraction in the private sector in terms of the flow of capital to them, it tells you that individuals are now borrowing at a higher cost. I'm not sure.
You're looking at around 40% plus.
Exactly. If you go to the bank,
40%.
If you go to the bank, maybe the least loan, interest on loan you can get probably will be around 31 or 30%. People are even now paying 35, 38, and it's in the range of
because after they use the standard rates per the Bank of Ghana, they have to add on their percentage of about 7%, depending on
the market.
So once you add that, you are looking at something close to 40%.
So if government is issuing treasury bills around 30% or 29% interest, and it tells you that the banks will also add their margins, their marks to it when they are borrowing to you. And it's in the Bank of Ghana statement that they are now they now want to, put their monies into short-term securities. I mean, they are going after the 91T bill, just like Professor Lord Mensah said.
So there's a clear signal. The writing is on the wall.
Exactly.
Professor Mensah, what is your quick response to that? There's something else I want to run by you, but how do you react to this on the back of the stifling environment when it comes to private business? They are being crowded out. Some of you spoke about this, you foresaw this, and it is indeed happening. And then Ghana's debt post the DDEP. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. I mean, like I mentioned earlier in my submission, government posture is the order of the day. The posture has been that I want to spend. That aggressive trajectory that government has been on in terms of expenditure, increase, it has not toned down after the DDEP. And that is why you see more money flowing to the government than, the businesses. Of course, the cost of borrowing is one of them, at the heels of, huge inflation, on the market, because we're talking about inflation looking around 30% and above. So no one will lend to an environment where the risk is high as a result of even the macro structure that we have as we speak now. They know very well that the economy is not good. When you lend to the private man, it will be difficult to, retrieve your money. They know very well that, things are not that good. But you see, surprisingly, in the news recently, they said the banks are posing profit. And then I asked myself, where is this profit coming from? It's mainly, investment in government instrument, treasury bills. And you see, the adding up of the debt that we've compared since the last 9 months, as Kofi threw out the numbers, about 35 billion, are in short term. That's the worrying aspect. They are in short term. The government knows very well that the investor appetite has reduced from long term to short term, and they're still fueling, the investors' appetite to still remain in short term. That is not how we run an economy. Because at the end of the day, you have to give the signal. And let me tell you, that in the funds that are flowing in the system, right, has no alternative destination than government instrument. Government can come up one day and say, I'm borrowing at 19%. They will still get their target because the funds have no alternative, investment destinations. People's appetite in financial instrument has grown. People are lazy now. They don't want to put their money in farming. They don't want to put their money into, mini industries that they have to stress themselves managing it. So giving the money to government to work with has been the order of the day. Government can get up one day and say, I'm reducing my borrowing rate. If you think you can find it somewhere else for the money, go and do it. And they'll still attract the necessary funds that they need. It's the government that has been fueling this because they want to stay on the market, competing with the private sector, knowing very well that when the rates are high, monies will find itself into the bosoms of the government rather than, individual businesses. So from where I sit, it has to do with control. When you look at what we call the loanable fund theory, I mean, businesses are demanding funds, government is also demanding funds, individuals are demanding funds, but when interest rates are high, monies will find itself, with the government. But the same bank that is posting profit, the same bank is also calling for, high non-performing loans. Okay? And where is the high non-performing loans coming from? Because of the interest rate levels. Anybody that is borrowing now and operating within this economy, the tendency to pay at that high level of interest rate is very low. So the level of interest rate itself is causing, credit risk problems. So from where I sit, I think the government needs to change its posture.
All right. Hold for me. I'll come back to you shortly in a bit. But let me also bring in Dr. Edu Ananai-Entry, convener, Pensioner Bondholders Forum. Interestingly, on the back of this entire conversation, something we've put on Joy News on Facebook, you can check it out. In recent times, Mr. President has been speaking. He says, despite the challenges confronting the nation, we have demonstrated with our record in office that we are the party that can bring progress and prosperity to all parts of our country, including the economy. From where you sit, pensioner bondholders, and what you see out there in terms of our economy, in terms of your purchasing power, in terms of inflation, are you seeing this progress and prosperity?
Well, thank you very much. I think what I can say is that, and everybody is aware of that, is that the government is now paying coupons and principals when due. If that alone is what is leading into prosperity, I cannot vouch for that. What I can vouch for is that government is paying. But the fact that government is paying the coupons and the principals when they are on maturity, does not mean that we are heading towards prosperity. That I cannot vouch for.
I just heard Professor Mensah saying in the background that they are paying the coupons with treasury bills. And of course, that has its own implications as well.
Yes, that is all that I have been saying. If you don't have the money, you would only have to borrow new funds to pay the old funds, because we are not generating sufficient money to reduce our debt.
Economically speaking, that is robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, we can't say robbing. You owe, you must pay. You don't have the means of generating income to pay. So definitely you borrow and pay. And you see, when you are borrowing at higher rates than what you are paying, then you have a challenge. And that is why I always have a problem that, why can't government look at these rates? There are only we call them primary dealers, those that have been licensed to buy these treasury bills on behalf of clients. Why can't the ministry have a discussion with them that, look, we cannot be selling treasury bills to you at this rate. Let us come down. No investor, as far as I know, no investor goes to the bank to order for treasury bill and state the interest rate that he wants or she wants. No investor. It is the primary dealers who go to the market and say, we want to lend to you at this rate. And if government continues to borrow at that rate, I have a challenge. And as someone was saying, these funds do not have any other sources or avenue for investment, save the government bills. So why would government still continue to be borrowing at that high level when you can say, look, I can't borrow, I can no longer continue to borrow at this level? Try it and see whether people will say they won't give you that money. Where would they take that money to?
They will still get it.
And so you will still get it. So I can't understand. The other time I said to your friends that, look, for me, I think that government should just meet these primary dealers. And these are all the banks. They are the primary dealers. No investor individually goes to the auction market. It is the primary dealers. So just having a discussion with these primary dealers that, look, we cannot sell treasury bills to you. We cannot borrow from you above this level. what would the primary dealers say? Would they take their money to Nigeria, or they would take it to Togo, or where? It will still be in this country, and they will have to invest it.
Yes, but what will that also do? What will that have as a ripple effect? You must consider that as well.
No, what ripple effect? If interest rates come down in this country, what ripple effect?
I'm talking about the confidence of the very market and the very people government is lending from. Government is borrowing. Government is borrowing from, I mean.
Yes, we know inflation is high. But we can't always get returns that will beat inflation. It's normal, under normal circumstances, you want to have something higher than inflation. But this economy, I remember some time ago when inflation was about 70%, Treasury bill was at 45%. So we have had these challenges before, that interest rates are lower than Treasury bills. And we move on. But I'm saying that, you see, why was government able to bring this Treasury bills rates down? And we were all involved. We in some of our discussion, we told the ministry that, look, you should try, and if you say you are not borrowing that much, and you have some cushion, definitely you can force the interest rate down. And I'm saying there should be a conscious effort. Talk to all of us. Nobody, no investor, if you go to the market now and the primary dealer gets you 20%, no investor will say, I won't put my money there.
Right.
That is a fact.
Right. Quickly on this point, very briefly, before I move on. So you, the pensioner bondholders, you're getting paid now, your coupons, your principals, and all that. Yay, it's a good thing. We all know where that is coming from. Whether that's sustainable is another question. But your purchasing power on the back of this economy, on the back of the DDEP, what has that been like? And the other metrics of our economy, what will be your quick reaction on that? Because that directly impacts you as well.
Yeah, as for the purchasing power, it's eroded. It's eroded because if you have your inflation at 40 and you are even getting your coupons at, let's say, 25, some of them 19 and others, you are still a handicap. You can't use the interest that you get, you can't use it to purchase goods and services at this current prices. So as for that, it's just, you are just redeeming part of the loss. Otherwise, everybody is hanging around just like that because of inflation. But I'm saying that now it's okay because you get the money, but as to whether, and that's why I say, after you have gotten your money, if that is what is going to lead you into prosperity, I can't vouch for it because you get this money, and when you go to the market, the interest rate that you have gotten on your bonds is not able to fight the increases in prices. So that one, everybody is affected.
Dr. Idrisu, as we get ready to wind down on the conversation, I want to start situating lessons. If you look at the tail of the tape, if you look at our inflation, if you look at the interest rates, if you look at government's over-reliance on T-bills, if you look at all the other metrics we are seeing, the gargantuan increases in borrowing post the DDEP. If you look at where we find ourselves in terms of even getting the second tranche of the IMF money, if you look at all of these metrics and more, where our central bank is currently, its own constraints, what lessons do you feel, if any, we have learned and are applying from the DDEP, and maybe we could learn or should learn and apply? Dr. Idrisu.
Well, as to whether the government has actually learned its lessons, that is another topic for discussion another day, because if we are not careful, we may be coming back again for another DDEP, probably 1 year or a couple of years down the lane. Because if you look at history, or if you look at countries that has implemented the DDEP, for example, Jamaica, the first one wasn't successful due to how it was implemented. And I think about 3 years down the lane, they had to come back for a second DDEP. But the lessons that I would want government to actually learn basically is that the economy is in various sectors. Government has a role to play, and government role should not crowd out the private sector, basically. I think governments or successive governments as well should be able to learn this. Whatever government is doing in terms of job creation, in terms of development, whatever it is, unless the private sector is needed as the engine of growth to be able to stimulate the needed jobs in the economy and drive the growth that government is looking for. Without the private sector, we wouldn't be able to achieve any meaningful growth within our economy. And the financial sector is needed to be able to drive that. So I think government will need to learn this bitter lesson and see how to be able to fulfill its own promises it has made to the financial sector following the DDEP. That is the $1.5 billion Ghana Financial Stability Fund. I will be happy that government focuses on it, unless whatever money that it will be raising, because I think the World Bank gave 250 million commitment, and I think the African Development Bank also gave, I'm not sure whether it was 100 million commitment or so, but the rest is yet to be raised. Government needs to focus on that. With a thriving financial sector, definitely the cost of borrowing might be able to come down, and the private sector will also be able to come on board, because no matter how government wants to create employment, it will not be able to satisfy the teeming unemployed youth, no matter how it is. Because if you look at, I think government employs about 23 or less than 30% so far. So it is the private sector that creates the jobs. And if you don't support the private sector, definitely you are going to have a weaker economy. And aside that, it's good that government spends on social services like the LEAP, but in our part of the world, excuse me to say, the beneficiaries are not even the actual beneficiaries. So at the end of the day, the needed development that could have been inured from that is lost, because at the end of the day, you have political cronies, political friends, being beneficiaries of these LEAP services. So even if government is increasing it in the budget, does it really go to the poor and needy in the society who needs that? Those are the stuff that government will have to look at. And for a successful DDEP, government will actually have to focus on cost reduction. Expenditure reduction is very necessary. Look at the recent climate change conference happening in Dubai. I'm not sure whether the rumor is true, but news coming out is suggesting that government has sent 618 delegations just to represent Ghana. At least think about all the expenditure associated with that. Their per diems, their efforts and all. So stuff like this, if the rumor is actually true, government will have to actually look into cost expenditure reduction in some of these stuff. It's not expenditure reduction in terms of building hospitals, not expenditure reduction in terms of providing social amenities, but expenditure reduction in terms of some of these travelings. It will be a better way to be able to, propel the growth that government is looking for.
Dr. Etiahene, you have, put on paper some of these thoughts on the lessons on the back of the DDEP. Has this government, has it learned? And if not, what are some of the lessons we can take away from the economic situation we find ourselves in currently? Dr. Etiahene. Hello, Dr. Etiahene, are you with me?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Hello?
Did you get the question?
Yeah, I've got the question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. I think the lesson that we have learned from this whole DDEP is that the country, as a country, we need to put a brake on our debt. There must be a conscious effort to put a physical, what we call the debt cap or the debt limit in our an amended constitution. Because what we see here is that the borrowing becomes a soft spot for people who promise heaven and earth when they come to power. And then when they borrow, the money do not go into productive sectors. What I mean by productive sector, when this government took over, cocoa we syndicated 2 billion. Today we're talking about 800 million. If all these monies that we borrowed, especially the the foreign aspect of it should have even gone in rice production and poultry. We wouldn't be spending 2 billion in that area. So I believe that as a nation, we should all come together. The CSOs, the government, the politics, everybody, so that Ghana must make a conscious, put a debt cap in our constitution. We should go and amend the constitution, because the way it's going, we will revisit these issues on and on and on until death do us part. Because people promise heaven and earth when they want power. But the heaven and earth comes from the revenue you generate. One belongs to the revenue you generate. Now, let me give you another example. Look at cocoa. Look at gold. People talk about gold. Recently, a minister said we generated 6.6. But from Bank of Ghana's own report, 2022, Ghana received a dismal 865 billion, not 6.6 billion. What are we doing? What sort of contract are we signing? All these things had impacts on our generation, our social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. How can you export 6.6 billion for a country to benefit only 865 million? It is a big disgrace. I don't know which contracts we signed. Let me give you an example. Recent, as this at the beginning of the year, Botswana said no. De Beers who have been doing diamond has been doing what they've been doing to Ghana. They say no. Either you renegotiate the contract, move us to 30% and 40%, or leave the resources down. The DBS have no objection, they had to do it because they need the diamonds. Why are we selling everything and destroying everything?
Right.
So for me, we should put a debt cap and we should be managing our resources effectively and be sure the contract people sign. You talk about lithium or what have you. You read and some of the comments you hear from IAE and the former Chief Justice, you begin to ask yourself, are we doing justice to the country and for the future generation?
Right.
The future doesn't belong to the old. It belongs to the generation behind us. Why are we rippling it, borrowing heaven and earth, not doing no proper investment?
Right.
So for me, I'll sum it up like, we have done a collateral damage to the country. Now nobody wants to syndicate cocoa. And yesterday I heard the people are charging 9.5% for the 900 million. People don't even want to participate in cocoa syndication.
Right.
Collateral damage is so much. So I believe that as a nation, we should be looking forward where we leave things for the generations to come.
Okay.
Not to dissipate everything and destroy it. Dissipate and destroy. Not dissipate alone, destroy it.
Okay.
And then we say we are leaving a country. That is what I will say for the time being.
Dr. Tiahene, thank you. Those will be your final comments, actually, as we wind down on the conversation. Professor Mensah, dissipate and destroy. Those are the words of Dr. Tiahene, that we've ruined everything, collateral damage. What then would you say is the way forward, Professor Mensah?
Yeah, I think from where I sit, I've been saying this, and I'll keep on saying. Let's ring fence our, existing debt, which has become albatross on us. And going forward, if I'm looking at things, we should be able to borrow for a purpose. And borrowing for a purpose means that if you take foreign, funds, which in the form of borrowing, you should be able to invest it in, export enhanced, projects, which at the end of the day will bring in, the foreign, currency to pay. I always take my mind back the first time we went to the Eurobond market, apart from those bilateral debt that were accumulating. Our first commercial loan that we took from the Eurobond market, what did you do with it? Subsequent to that, if you study all the prospectus that we've used in going to the market, we borrowed to offset existing debt. So you ask yourself, which sector did we invested the first, Eurobond money that we got from the market in 2007? clearly we cannot pinpoint anything, and it has been a problem. And let me chip in this. You see, our generation, including Dr. Tiahine's age and Dr. Edu Entry's age, I think we've been, excuse my language to say, we've not helped this nation, because the generation before their generation, at least we can pinpoint something like Akosombo Dam, right, which has serviced this nation. The debt that we've been accumulating, what can we pinpoint and say this is a project that is going to pay our debt in the future?
But every time we get on that trajectory, I know we are ending. Every time we get on that trajectory, we are told free SHS, 1D, 1F, planting for food and jobs. So let me put it to you.
You see, free SHS is a social project, and when you are valuing a social project, this is a commercial loan. You see, when you compare, your commercial loan and you relate it to free SHS, you are getting it wrong. Okay. You can tax your own people to finance free SHS. You can use some resources like petroleum resources to finance, free SHS, but not, commercial loan that you're supposed to pay within a certain time bound. I'm talking about commercial loans that has gone into commercial projects that can generate the necessary revenue to pay back. So more or less a self-financing project that you put the money into. We cannot pinpoint anything. So we seem to be like, sometimes I walk and then I look at my kids and then I ask myself, would my kids, classify me to be an old man who has made impact on this nation? And then I know that I can't give them any good answer. So from where I sit, our generation, including, Dr. Tiahine and then Dr. Edwin and Nientri, and all of us, we've been a bunch of criminals that we borrowed and then we've consumed without leaving anything behind for our, young ones. So the going forward will be that let's ring fence, the existing debt, but then going forward we borrow responsibly. That is what I would say.
Thank you, Dr. Edu Ananaye-Antwi.
I'm not cutting in. You mentioned free high school, and I just wanted to ask.
No, I just threw that in, Doc. I threw that in because usually
how many of the ministers' sons or daughters attend the free high school? Let's be realistic. We must be looking for quality, not quantity.
All right.
I think we must make it very clear.
All right.
We should be talking about quality, not
Doc,
quantity.
thank you. Thank you for that final point. I only threw it in because usually when you talk about these things and you ask, where has all the money gone? Then you'll be told. I mean, recently we had Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, who famously cried in 2016 about saving the soul of the country. When he was asked about whether they had rescued the country, that was what he used. He used free SHS. That
you can't use free SHS.
Exactly. So that was why I just brought it up to find out whether it would measure up. Dr. Edu Ananaye-Antwi, if you can manage 30 seconds with your final words, I'd be grateful, sir. Dr. Edu Ananaye-Antwi. All right.
My advice is that government should try and do the needful by ensuring that it can bring its borrowing costs down. And I believe if the ministry sits with the primary dealers, they would agree that we are not going to bid at that high level and bring the prices, the cost of borrowing down, so that government can continue to do what is needed in this country. The borrowing cost is too high, and something must be done to bring it down.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having joined this crucial conversation. Professor Lord Mensah, Associate Professor of Finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Richmond Tiahine, Banking Consultant, Dr. Saad Idrisu, Economist, Louisiana Economic Development, and Dr. Edu Ananaye-Antwi, Convener, Pensioner Bondholders Forum. Let me just cap it off in the studio with you, Isaac Kofi J. What would be your assessment, your final words on the back of this conversation we've had?
Well, I think everything is actually contained in the research paper, which will be made available on myjoyonline.com right after this show.
Right.
And then also, we probably will be bringing you the part 3 of A Nation That Begs, which will not really focus on the DDEP because we said a lot about it, but also the external debt, how Ghana was hailed as the trailblazer or the darling boy in the Eurobond.
We're still the trailblazer. For negative reasons.
So we'll look at how Ghana actually moved from the darling boy in the Eurobond market, borrowing all over the place,
to the villain, the bad boy.
Right now, we are all over the place begging for debt relief and forgiveness and haircuts. And so that will be the part 3 of A Nation That Begs. But lessons from the DDEP will be made available on myjoyonline.com, a research led by Dr. Richmond Etienne.
Isaac Kofi-Adjei, thank you so much. He's a data analyst, our in-house statistician, if you like. And by the way, your haircut doesn't look like you are doing too badly. A nice haircut.
You mean the other haircut? Or
no, I mean this haircut, not the DDEP. Stay with us. We'll be back on the AM show with a lot more. That talk about lithium mining, the Abuache, the sacred forest or grove, if you like, among other matters. All of those we have coming up in a bit on the AM show. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show. The Efutu area, the forest, is not for lithium mining. That is what the Member of Parliament, Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Markin, has been saying. There was a bit of rancor in Parliament in recent times because there was an accusation from the NDC's end on the back of this that was actually happening. But with these barbs that are being traded, what exactly is the truth? Mind you, one of the biggest, finest festivals we have in Ghana incorporates the forest, in which the Abuache festival, they go and actually check the abua. They go and catch the animal that is used for the Abuache festival. In this instance, we want to find out what the truth is. Joining us for a conversation, James Kofi Annan is the NDC parliamentary candidate in Futu constituency, and he is spokesperson for the demonstrators against mining in the Abuache festival grounds. Thank you, James, for joining the conversation. Of course,
thank you for having me.
We have, why this is a two-sided conversation is that we've heard from Afenyo-Markin, so we know what his side has said. We've given him a voice on this matter by what we have read. But you are also on the ground. Tell us what is really happening there and why this tussle over the lithium mining that supposedly is going on. Is it going on?
Yeah, the lithium mining has not commenced yet, but the license to commence mining has been granted.
Granted to whom?
Granted to the Green Metal Resources Limited, which is a subsidiary of an Australian company called Atlantic Lithium Company. Now, with this company, it started from last year. I actually saw it in the graphic publication that notified the public that anyone who has any issue against the granting of the concession should come out, because the Green Metal Resources had then applied for concession, large-scale mining concession. So our paramount chief, Neigati VII, held a press conference and issued a statement and followed up with a petition to the Minerals Commission telling them that that enclave is not available for mining because that's our heritage. This is our spiritual ground. So it was not meant for mining. I also did a lot of work on it, and eventually the Minerals Commission, through its CEO, issued a statement and wrote to our paramount chief that that place has not been given for any mining, and his office is not going to give it on concession for any group of companies to do mining. So we thought that the matter has ended there as at last year. Then this year, I uncovered a license or the concession that had been given to the same company, the Green Metal Resources Limited. The concession having commenced in this year on 9th November 2023 and expiring on 8th November 2026. covering an area of about 6.9 square kilometers within the Ramsar site enclave. In fact, it even had the license numbers and everything, and it was actually posted.
So it's a Ramsar site?
It's a Ramsar site, and it was actually posted on the mining repository. You know, the mining repository is a global website that any mining concession can be found there.
Right.
With its attendant cadastral survey that goes with it. So that's where we began to raise alarm on the issue. And having raised alarm, our paramount chief, in fact, together with the neighboring paramount chiefs, the Gomoa paramount chiefs, did a joint press conference with our paramount chief, with Neigati the 7th, and registered their protests and reiterated the reasons why they were not going to allow lithium mining in that enclave. We believe that per the history of concession applications within that enclave, if we do not do something to demonstrate our resolve to protest against the mining in the forest, it will continue to roar its ugly head every year. Because look, in 2012, a company called Obotan Resources Limited applied for a concession to mine lithium in the same enclave.
The same enclave?
The same.
2012.
2012, which was rejected. The people protested and it was rejected. In 2016, another company called Merlink Resources Limited came to apply for a mining concession in the same enclave. That one too was resisted. Then we have the 2022 application that was done in 2021, but we saw in 2022 by the Green Metal Resources for this concession. Eventually, we now have 2023 that has been confirmed that they have been granted concession. Now, let me give you a fresh information, which I just posted on my Facebook, James Kofi Annan. The parent company, which is Atlantic Lithium, has already issued a statement announcing the concessions that they've received from government of Ghana. In the statement, they gave 2 concessions. One was in Ewutu Breku, and then the other one was the one we are talking about. And they stated even the number of kilometers that it was covering. And I've given you the kilometers, 6.93 kilometers within the Ramsar site. They even went further to acknowledge the forest in which we hunt our deer, that's the Abachi Hunting Festival grounds, in their statement, and proceeded to say that that is a significant achievement by the company in their portfolio of mining leases. So
this is what, on the website of the company? I mean, help us, this statement you speak of,
yes,
we do not have. Give us some more details.
Yes, so the statement was actually posted on so many news portals in Australia. You can go to the Herald in Australia, you see.
No, but my point is, when you make such statements, you talk about the fact that it has put it out there, you should come with some evidence. You should have something in hand to show us. I mean, it would have been good if you could show us the statement.
Of course, I've just said that if you go to my Facebook page, I've posted it there. I mean, this one, I posted it just about 10 minutes before I entered the studio. But I can send you the link from my my Facebook.
Please do,
yes.
so we can have
evidence. I mean, the evidence so much abounds that the place has been given out on concession. The government officials continue to deny this and to say that they've not granted any.
And in fact, as you look for the document, and speaking of the denials, okay, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, who is the Member of Parliament for Efutu, and we must take this seriously, you would notice that a lot of places are getting very wary because of the illegal mining scourge when these things come up, they are very wary and they immediately go after establishment. Only recently, just a few days ago, we had the Joy News National Dialogue. The Minerals Commission head was there. And some of what was said, I don't want to regurgitate, but it makes for interesting listening and misunderstanding, not understanding, if you like. But in this instance, Alexander Afenyo-Markin is saying that the Minerals Commission 2 years ago issued a statement to the effect that such an application from the said company had not even been received by them, let alone approving the company to mine lithium in the sacred forest where they hunt for deer during Abuachiri 2 years ago. But how about now? That's the question we're asking. How about now? Do you have the statement now?
Okay, so the website that this statement had been published is mining.com.au.
Mining.com.au. Can you just read the statement?
I can, let me just, this is globalmining.com. So it says that published by Jane Betham, editorial assistant, Global Mining Review. Atlantic Lithium Limited, the African-focused lithium exploration and development company targeting deliver Ghana's first lithium mine, has announced that the company's wholly owned Ghanaian subsidiary, Green Metals Resources Limited, has been granted the Biwaze and Senyabreku prospecting licenses in the eastern portion of the company's Cape Coast lithium portfolio in Ghana, which holds the flagship Ayoya lithium project. So, it's a very long statement.
But this encapsulates what
basically what we are looking at, and goes on to describe in detail the concessional areas that has been granted. And if you look at the cadastral, and I've sent it to your editor, your producers, the cadastral and the license document that we retrieve from the licensing repository, you will see that the cadastral has been done in such a way that you can see that they are trying hard to differentiate between the land that has been given and the protected areas. But you know, between Gomwa West and Efutu, all that land that encapsulates the Biwaze, the Mankwazi area, that mountain there or hill there, to Akosia village of Winneba and close to Winneba Secondary School are all part of the Ramsar site. In fact, the Ramsar site even goes beyond that area. So any mining or concession within that enclave is automatically being done in the reserve area. And it includes the lagoon, which also forms part of the fishing activities of the people of Winneba. So basically what has happened is that and I heard the CEO of the Minerals Commission making that comment.
He has refuted the allegations. He says no lease agreement has been assigned for mining in this area,
exactly,
in the forest.
Yes, I heard him say that. And that is not true. Because if your producers will send you the document I've sent to them, you will see that it has been given.
Okay, so let's listen to the CEO of the Minerals Commission as he said what he did. Okay, so we also have Afenyo-Markin speaking to the issues. Let's listen to him.
The NDC in my constituency has come out with a serious allegation to the effect that government officials, including my office, sat on concern and got the sacred forest of Efutu where we go for deer hunting. The place has been sold for the mining of lithium. I simply want to say that this allegation is false, it's never true, and in fact the Minerals Commission 2 years ago, issued a statement to the effect that such an application has not even been received by them, let alone approving for a company to mine lithium in that sacred forest where we hunt for deer during our Boatry festival. So I just want to set the record straight, put it on record, that there is no such thing. I would want, therefore, to urge my colleagues in the NDC to focus on the real challenges facing our people so that we engage on issues rather than polluting the minds of people, misinforming and lying. Such a practice does not help in democracy. So basically, that's the point I want to make.
Alexander Afenyo in there. He's calling your side liars. How do you react to that? He says focus on the matters of concern and stop lying.
I will ignore that one, but I will say that what is more important to the people than what is culturally connected to them and spiritually connected to them. Is it downplaying the Boatry festival? Is he saying that the Boatry festival is not important? Is that what he's saying? I will ignore that for it now. But he's saying that the Minerals Commission issued a statement 2 years ago. It's not 2 years ago. It was last year that the statement was issued. And now, and he says that they've not even received any application. Let me give you evidence. Look at Daily Graphic of June 25, 2022. Daily Graphic, Tuesday, June 25, 2022. There was a publication by the Minerals Commission announcing the intentions of Minerals Commission to grant concession to Green Metal Resources. And it is not only Green Metal Resources that was published. So many companies. So you go straight to number 34. Number 34. Number 35. And then you will see Green Metal Resources, P.O. Box 1071 Obuasi AR. The telephone number is there. Prospecting license.
Prospecting license. What are the other details there?
6.93 square kilometers. And say lithium and other minerals. And then the location, as they say, is Biwazi. But we know what we are talking about. When you say Biwazi, that's enclave. And there's no Ramsar site called Biwazi. The Ramsar site is called Winneba Pomazi Ramsar site.
So in other words, what you're saying is, even by this from the Daily Graphics publication on behalf of the Minerals Commission, which had actually put this out with prospecting licenses and details of same, dated June the 25th, 2022, this is opposed to what we're hearing. Right?
Yeah, this is contrary to what he is saying, that they have not even received any application. In fact, the application was sent to them on 30th August 2021. 20th January 2022, sorry. So if you're saying that you have not even received an application, and you yourself, the CEO of Mineral Commission, is the one who signed this document to Daily Graphic. So what you are saying is that you are telling us one thing in public and doing another in office.
I would say this. I think we engaged the head of the Minerals Commission, the CEO, in recent times. I think it would be opportune if we could get him on this conversation. Or in fact, you have a lot of these people watching TV on Joy News. If you are minded to do so, CEO of the Minerals Commission, would like to hear from you. You could even phone in yourself and maybe we could have a conversation. If not on this show, moving on, because something doesn't add up as far as this situation is concerned. Now, just to create a picture for all of us, because we're all suffering from mining that is not done, in the right way, and the effects on us, not just gold, among other things. Now, with this lithium thing which is developing, we have to be careful we don't go down the same road as gold. But a Ramsar site, just to create context, a Ramsar site is a wetland site designated to be of international importance under the Ramsar Convention. It's also known as the Convention on wetlands. And mind you, this is an international environmental treaty. Then again, you come to the fact that the Efutu traditional area has for over 300 years been designated as a forest reserve, specifically for the protection of bushbuck, which is what is used during the Abwacher festival. Of course, we're just trying to establish what the truth is on this matter. The Efutu MP says nothing like that is happening. In effect, there has been no prospecting license given to this entity, Green Metal Resources. Then we see in an Australian publication that indeed this is mentioned there. And then we can even go back to June the 22nd or June the 25th, 2022, and the Minerals Commission itself puts out something in respect of entities that have been granted prospecting licenses. So which is which? But on the other hand, Mr. Kofi Annan,
yes,
some would also look at you and say, but wait a minute, hold your horses. You're trying to be MP in Efutu, are you not? And you are on the ticket of the NDC in Efutu. All of this is politics. Some will say that. What's your response to that?
Well,
I mean, all of this serves you, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't serve me. It rather go contrary to my interests. If I'm, involved in demonstrations of this nature, it doesn't serve my interests. I am.
But it serves your purpose. You want to oust Alexander Afenyo-Markin, and you may say you're fighting for the people, but this also serves your purpose, doesn't it? Individually.
It doesn't serve my purpose.
Don't you want to be MP?
I want to be MP, but I am first of foremost Winnibarian, 100%. My father, my mother from there. And you know me very well. Since age 19, I've been defending and fighting for the interests of Efutu, Winneba. And so this is one of what I have been doing since time immemorial. If you know my history, you know. Look, I don't want us to go into politics and political matters. I have in front of me the license that I'm talking about. License PL-I-3/15. That is what is on the mining repository. We should not politicize this. You see, if you politicize it, are you saying that the Oman of Efutu traditional area, who held a press conference twice, last year and this year, to oppose it and to register its displeasure, is also a politician or is an NDC person, or the Gomwa chief who also held a press conference with Oman is also an NDC appointee or activist? Let's not politicize it. This is our heritage, something that has been handed over to us many centuries ago. And you are talking about somebody who has been involved in the protection of the interests of Efutu and Winneba for many, many, many years. You know it. So somebody, just because now I'm a candidate for a party, would then say that I'm doing this for political expediency, and you believe that person, what is he doing it for? Is he also doing that and lying about it for political expediency? No, let's not go there.
Justice Lucid Grant says they are both playing politics. He's talking about Alexander Afenyo-Markin and you. He says you're both playing politics. But this one also says, our youth and the people of Efutu should sit these two politicians down and talk to them. We don't need any discrimination and false issues. But Justice, in terms of falsehoods, you must establish what is false in the first place before you spew. I don't know what angle you are coming from, but if you are from Winneba, then maybe I'll give you some benefit of the doubt. But if you're not on the ground, then don't speak to the issues. If you don't know, don't spew rhetoric you don't understand. This one, Shika Manson says, this Efutu thing goes beyond NPP and NDC. It's about the Efutu people and their chiefs. It's a pity. But you're just telling me that the Omanhene, is it the Omanhene you mentioned?
Yes.
Has had his concern about this entire enterprise. Someone is also seemingly laying part of the blame at the feet of your chiefs, your traditional rulers. And we've seen that in illegal mining when it comes to gold. So to what extent are the chiefs aware of this? I'm looking at the license PL13 PL-I- is it 3/15,
Exactly.
and the time there, the start date for Green Metals Resources Limited, that is the 9th of November 2023, all the way till the 8th of November 2026. Like you mentioned, the district's Bewadze, but we know that specifically it is this forest that this would be targeting. What role, are you aware of any role the chiefs may have played in this entire enterprise? Because usually when this happens, there is some consultation, and the chiefs must be aware.
As far as I can't speak for the paramount chief, I'm not his spokesperson, but what I know, and as he has granted some interviews, so I've heard him speak. What I know is that he was not consulted until the issue came out last.
Is that what he told you?
That is what he has told the public in the media, that he was not consulted until the issue came out last year, and he held a press conference and gave a petition to the Minerals Commission. And then this year too, he was not consulted until this issue came up, and he had to hold a press conference. Even this morning, I was on the same media platform with him, and he did mention that he has not been aware of something like that until this came into public domain. So I would never say, and I know for sure, that he has not been consulted. Let me say that in the previous years, 2012 and 2016, when the Obotan Resources Limited and Merlink Resources Limited applied, there were some public consultations, and that resulted in the rejection of their applications. But this one, there's not been any public consultations. I'm a big opinion leader in Winneba, you know it. And so I would know. I have my feet on so many places in the town. I would know if there is any consultation. There's not been any consultation. And we are saying that, okay, assuming that you have realized that you've made a mistake by granting this license, by this protest, you should know that the people are rejecting the license. So stop it. That is all that we are saying. No one has an interest to put some people on the street to demonstrate just because there is a concession. If there is no concession, if there is no threat to our forest, we will not do what we are doing. And in fact, we don't need to even be informed that the license has been revoked. All we want to see is that no one comes to the forest and mine there. Because that's our heritage. It's part of our spiritual being. It's part of our economic sources. Our fishermen fish there. Our farmers even farm close to the enclave. And you know the security implications of mining all over the world, especially in recent times, when the indigenes of places have been assaulted or attacked by security agencies who are protecting mining concessions. And you are situating this close to such a historical site. You are not doing any good to the people. So what we are saying is that just stop it. And I will urge Afanyo Makin, if he doesn't have information, he can just Google, or he can go to my page. He can find information to know that the license had been granted, and he's used his privileges as an MP to stop it. We want to see him fighting for the interest of the people. No one is interested in creating confusion. And the choice of his words, lying, if you go into the evidence that you have right now, myself and him, you will know who is telling the truth.
Of course, I was just reflecting on the fact that growing up, cultural studies and the rest, for those who read cultural studies way back when, you would read about many festivals in our country, and the Abwache was one of them in our textbooks back then. So it's interesting that now this is coming up. When you were speaking about cultural heritage, spiritual life of the people, that came to mind. 2012, there was an attempt, like you said. Yes. Was it 2012 you
2012.
said? 2016?
2016.
Now 2023. 2022 to 2023. Yes. Another attempt. And you ask yourself, again, those who have been at the helm of affairs at the Minerals Commission, among others, why we keep having this. Because it seems to be a never-ending battle. Do you get it?
Yes.
Concession given, concession not given, pushback from the people. Why do we keep going back? And something that boggles my mind, assuming all of this is actually the case, because at least in the past we know this has happened. What at all do we want as a people? On the back of the latest national dialogue, we must ask, the resources we even mine, even let's assume we are doing this. Now, the Minerals Commission will tell us that even these national parks and others are viable, that per the law they can be mined and all of that. But what do we want as a country? And even what we have got from our different mines, what have we done with them? So from where you sit, do you suppose Afenyomarkin is aware of this, or do you suppose he's in the dark, which is why he's saying what he's saying?
Before I answered that, I would say that about 10 of our demonstrators yesterday have been arrested. Right now I've been informed that they've been taken to Swedru Court instead of Winneba Court to prosecute them.
They've been taken to Swedru?
Swedru instead of Winneba. We have courts in Winneba, but the police are taking them to Swedru.
Do you know why?
I don't know why, but I don't know why they would have to do that, because the jurisdiction is in Winneba, and we have a high court in Winneba, we have district court in Winneba. So why would you take them to Swedru?
Do you know why they've been arrested?
What we are learning is that after the demonstration, some of the demonstrators were not happy that we were prevented from going to send a petition to the district assembly. So they went there, and at that time, officially, the demonstration was over. And there was a confrontation between them, according to what I am hearing, because I was not there. There was a confrontation between them and the police, because they insisted they wanted to see the MC. And according to the story, throughout the resistance, something happened. And the police had to put up tear gas and warning shots and so on and so forth. And I think that some of the demonstrators pelted stones. And this number has been arrested. My information is that those who have been arrested were not even, part of anyone who was causing chaos. When the tear gas was ongoing, they were running away and they were arrested. So if you have arrested them, legitimately so, but send them to court in Winneba, where their families can have access to them. Why would you take them to...
So what are you going to do on the back of this?
I have already contracted a lawyer to seek bail for them. And the lawyer is now looking for them where they are. And he's not able to find them. So
because they've been taken to Swedru.
To Swedru. So I just want to use your medium to appeal to the police. We apologize for any excesses that might have happened after the demonstration. But in apologizing, we should also be mindful of the rights of those who have been arrested and protect safe. Because these are the things that, when you continue to oppress the people, I'm reminding you that in 2021, the people wanted to demonstrate. The police prevented them. 2022, the people wanted to demonstrate. The police prevented them. This year, they attempted to prevent the demonstration. And when you have oppressed people for that long, it results in eruption. An eruption in the manner that you saw. People pouring on the streets in their mass numbers to demonstrate their anger in protest against the mining. Anyway, let me come back to...
Let us be your final point. So let's go.
The question you asked me, whether Afenyomarkin is... the person who doesn't have information, I don't know. I
asked whether he didn't know about this, whether you felt he actually didn't know about this.
I feel in one way that he may be defending his government, because he's an MPP in government, and he's an MPP person. He's an MPP MP. So it stands to reason that he would like to defend his government.
Okay, all right.
Or he may just probably doesn't want to acknowledge and recognize the truth. Maybe.
All right. Well, time will tell.
Time will tell.
I always say that with these matters, there's no way. It's like excavators. They don't fly to sites. They get there somehow. People see. People do things. So time will tell how this cookie crumbles. I see a lot of messages more coming through, but we're going to have to hang it here. James Kofi Annan is the NDC's parliamentary candidate in the Afutu constituency and spokesperson demonstrators against mining in the Abuache Festival grounds. Thank you for joining this conversation. Thank you, James, for coming, and we'll keep an eye on this matter to establish what exactly is happening. But today is Wednesday, and courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, we are coming your way with AM Business. In today's episode, we focus on the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, which is worried, very worried, about Ghana's continuous dependence on food imports, arguing this makes the country highly vulnerable to external shocks. We'll bring you that after the break.
2024 budget provides some critical programs and policies to accelerate growth. However, Professor Curtis says there's a need for more incentives for these industries.
Some imported items, agriculture, consumables, health consumables, etc., had to enjoy some tax relief, but it's not far-reaching enough because you have food and beverage producers who have complained about high taxes on their commodities. We have others who, private sector areas where we still have high taxes. So we think that going forward, yes, we need to raise revenue to enhance government spending. But going forward, we should consider giving additional reliefs, especially when we are able to rationalize our expenditure and through procurement audits as well. Once we reduce our expenditure, get value for money, we will get some savings, then we can also give some additional tax reliefs to industry. Looking at how much we have grown, 3%, 4%, 3%, would that move many people out of poverty? You saw that about 23 districts where the poverty rate is over 50%. It's very high, very significant. If you want to move such people out of poverty, then you need to be growing at a much higher rate, any rate above 7 to 10% or 8 to 10%. That can help move people out of poverty. If you really want to see that your economy is doing well, look at the bottom 20% of the population.
On the CD outlook and the delay with respect to the IMF funds, Professor Curtis says he's positive and is expecting the CD not to depreciate.
Once we abandon them and we get back to them, they're going to be more expensive. So they ought to be completed. And if we have such monies coming in, of course, part could be used to finance the contractors so they could go back to site and complete these projects. Road is very significant, road to food production areas, road to other key areas. So once the roads are good, they are connected, it will enhance production, it will enhance distribution. And of course, the amount of time people spend in traffic, if we are to value the pollution effect, if we are to value the fuel that is consumed, if we are to value effects on people's health, if we are to value the effects on people's productivity, I mean, if we should cost them, it will tell you that we cannot but finance the construction of or completion of road projects. Well, I think it's modest, in my view. It's modest in the sense that we're trying not to overspend in 2024 because it's an election year. So government is trying to be as modest as it can, not to overspend. But I hope that what has been set in the 2024 budget, we're going to follow carefully and even improve on the numbers rather than worsen the situation like we used to do, we've done in the past. 2024 is a test case in the sense that we have never seen this domestic debt exchange program. We have never seen such escalation in rates of inflation, depreciation in a very long time. So we should learn our lessons from this and make sure we do the right things.
He cautioned government with respect to excessive spending going into the election year.
There's some investments that has been started, the road infrastructure, road networks and rail networks. They certainly have to be completed. We cannot abandon them. A lot of investments are gone into that. So we really have to work hard on this. Still on the IMF and inflation, we just wanted to show to you the election year's actual inflation, government's target, and you see clearly that in 2000, actually, we were under IMF program. The actual was 40.5%. Government's target was 12.5. 2004, again, under IMF program, 16.4 was the actual when the target was 10%. 2008, we were not, but our target was 8%. We ended up with 18.1. Then 2012, we were just about exiting from the IMF program, and that's why you see some good numbers close to the target. 2016, we were on the IMF program, and our target was 10.1, but we finished the year with 15.4%. So it clearly tells you that the IMF program is not the panacea to our problems. We have to do a bit more. Election years, if we don't have fiscal rules, we don't respect some of the rules, we'll still be under a program. And once we enter into the last quarter of the election year, that is when we start showing our true colors. Okay, so we'll then look at trade, issues of trade. Within the trade sector, we found a very interesting development.
And that's how we cap off AM Business and the AM show this morning. Thank you so much for making the time to journey across these 4 hours with me, Benjamin Akakpo. Let's do this again, same time tomorrow, but right afterwards, at the top of the hour, we'll bring you Joy News Desk. Good morning.
Thank you.